Commander Grax's crystalline armor shatters when a human child discovers its fatal flaw. But that comes later. For now, the Ferengi commander stands at the helm of his ship, mandibles clicking in satisfaction as his invasion force descends through Earth's atmosphere toward the rolling plains of Montana. The year is 2157, and humanity is about to learn a harsh lesson, or so Grax believes. His target, a stretch of American heartland where the advanced defense systems that protect major population centers are conspicuously absent. The first wave of dropships releases their cargo of crystalline armored troops, their metallic forms glinting in the morning sun as they establish a forward operating base. Greg Griffin spots them while checking his ranch's perimeter fence. The former Marine's hands tighten on his binoculars as he watches the tall, humanoid aliens deploy their equipment with military precision. Their armor, a transparent, crystalline exoskeleton, catches the light like diamonds. Among them moves a female officer, her movements hesitant compared to her comrades. Through his scope, Greg can read the conflict in Stella's body language as she sets up her medical station, duty warring with her obvious discomfort at this invasion. Local sheriff's deputies arrive first, their bullets pinging harmlessly off the aliens' crystalline shells. The Ferengi don't even bother to return fire, letting their armor demonstrate humanity's impotence. Grax's voice booms across the valley, transmitted to every device capable of receiving a signal. Your weapons are useless. Your species is inferior. Surrender now. In the hayloft of the Griffin family barn, 10-year-old Tommy watches through a gap in the wooden slats. His mind, already mechanically inclined from countless hours in his father's workshop, notes something curious. When the farm's grain processor activates its cooling cycle, the nearest alien soldiers flinch. Their perfect crystal armor shows hairline fractures that seal almost instantly. Greg's attempt to evacuate his family goes wrong when a Ferengi patrol cuts through the property. Tommy gets separated, ducking into his familiar sanctuary, the workshop. Here, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, the boy's eyes dart between the humming equipment and approaching alien soldiers. Commander Grax himself leads the search party moving toward the workshop, his crystalline form towering over the human structures. Inside, Tommy's hands move across the machinery that had caused those telling microfractures earlier. His father taught him that everything has a breaking point. Now, surrounded by the very equipment that revealed the alien's weakness, Tommy prepares to prove that humanity is far from inferior. Tommy's fingers trace the edge of his father's signal generator, his mind racing back to last spring's science fair. The project on resonant frequencies had earned him a blue ribbon. Now it might save his life. He connected leads to the generator with practiced movements, muscle memory from countless hours spent maintaining farm equipment guiding his hands. Through the workshop window, crystalline forms advanced methodically between the outlying buildings. Commander Grax's towering figure led the search party, his transparent armor refracting sunlight into rainbow patterns across the dusty ground. Tommy retrieved a small crystalline shard from his pocket, a piece that had flaked off one of the alien soldiers during their initial deployment. He placed it on the workbench and began cycling through frequencies on the signal generator. The workshop's familiar sense of machine oil and wood shavings helped steady his nerves as he worked. Outside, Greg Griffin crouched behind a hay bale, watching the Ferengi medical officer approach. Stella's movements betrayed her hesitation, each step measured, reluctant. When she spotted him, her weapon remained lowered. "Your child is in there," she said, her voice carrying an unexpected softness. "I had a child once before the campaigns on Proxima III. Greg kept his hands visible. Then help me reach him before Grax does." "The armor's weakest at the joints," Stella whispered, gesturing to her own crystalline plating. "Where the plates connect, that's where the resonance can tear it apart." In the workshop, A high-pitched whine filled the air as Tommy found the first promising frequency. The crystal shard vibrated, developing a web of microscopic cracks. He adjusted the generator's settings, layering a second frequency over the first. The shard's structure began to destabilize. Tommy wheeled his father's construction speakers into position, connecting them to the workshop's electrical panel. He calculated the power requirements in his head, just as he'd done dozens of times while helping upgrade the farm's systems. Commander Grax's voice carried through the workshop walls. Breach in 30 seconds. Greg and Stella circled behind the workshop, using the morning shadows for cover. Multiple Ferengi soldiers surrounded the building, weapons trained on every exit. Inside, Tommy's hands flew across the control panel, routing power from the farm's main grid into the speaker system. The generator hummed with building energy as he programmed the layered frequencies. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool morning air. The workshop door creaked under the first impact of Ferengi weapons. Tommy positioned himself behind the makeshift sonic array, his finger hovering over the activation switch. The crystal shard on his workbench had almost disintegrated under the test frequencies. Now he would see if his science project could save the farm. Commander Grax's armored fist punched through the door just as Greg and Stella reached the workshop's rear window. The moment of confrontation had arrived, with Tommy's understanding of basic physics about to be tested against the most advanced armor technology in the galaxy. Tommy's finger pressed the activation switch. A piercing wave of sound erupted from the speakers, filling the workshop with an invisible force that made his teeth buzz. Through the splintered door, he watched Commander Grax's crystalline armor ripple like water struck by a stone. The Ferengi commander staggered mid-stride, his imposing frame suddenly less steady. Fracture lines spiderwebbed across his transparent shell, starting at the joints where the plates met. The other soldiers' armor responded similarly, their confident advance faltering as the sonic assault battered their protective shells. Open fire! Grax's command cracked with static as his armor's communication system degraded. Energy weapons flashed, burning holes through the workshop's wooden walls. Tommy ducked behind his father's steel workbench, feeling the heat of near misses singe his hair. Outside, Greg pressed against the workshop's rear wall, tracking the guards' movements. Stella's voice came through her armor's damaged speaker system. Medical emergency in Sector 4. The alert drew 3 soldiers away from their positions, creating the opening Greg needed. Tommy's hands danced across the generator's controls, adjusting frequencies. Each change produced new patterns of destruction in the Ferengi armor. Pieces began falling away like ice breaking off a glacier, exposing gaps of vulnerable tissue beneath. The aliens' movements became jerky, restricted by their failing exoskeletons. The workshop's electrical panel sparked and smoked. Warning lights flashed across the generator's display. The power draw exceeded the farm's capacity. Tommy cycled through frequencies faster, watching through gaps in the workbench as more crystalline shards littered the floor. Commander Grax advanced through the deteriorating doorframe, his armor now a network of cracks held together by dedication. "Insignificant child," he snarled, raising his weapon. Greg burst through the rear entrance, wielding a heavy pipe wrench. He struck at Grax's knee joint, where Stella had indicated the armor's greatest vulnerability. The crystal shattered at the impact point, sending the commander stumbling. The lights flickered. Tommy's generator emitted a high-pitched whine as circuits overloaded. "Dad, the power!" A shower of sparks erupted from the electrical panel. Darkness filled the workshop as the sonic weapon fell silent. The remaining Ferengi soldiers, their armor damaged but intact enough to function, began regrouping outside. Stella worked furiously at her medical station, her fingers flying across her scanner's interface. The device's screen displayed acoustic wavelength patterns as she reprogrammed its imaging functions. She glanced at the workshop, hearing the sounds of struggle inside. Greg grappled with Grax in the dim light filtering through the bullet holes. The commander's armor continued crumbling, but his alien strength remained formidable. Tommy scrambled backward, searching for another power source as 3 Ferengi soldiers moved to surround the workshop. High above, surveillance drones captured every detail of the battle. In the Pacific Defense Command Center, General Howard leaned toward his screens, watching the crystalline armor fail under the sonic assault. "Get that frequency data to every research lab we have. I want prototype weapons based on this within the hour." Back in the workshop, Tommy reached for a backup generator under his father's bench. Grax's armored fist swung past his head, smashing into the wall behind him. Greg tackled the commander's legs, exploiting the weakened knee joint. Stella's medical scanner hummed to life, its display showing new acoustic parameters. She aimed it toward the workshop, her finger hovering over the activation control. Through the holes in the walls, she could see Tommy and Greg cornered by her commander, while her fellow soldiers moved to surround them. The scanner's power cell pulsed with energy, ready to emit its modified frequency. Stella took aim, knowing her next action would decide not just the fate of this human family, but her own future as well. Stella's finger pressed down on the scanner's activation control. A concentrated beam of sonic energy burst from the device, striking Commander Grax's already compromised armor. The crystalline plates vibrated at their molecular frequency, sending a spiderweb of cracks racing across their surface. Greg maintained his defensive stance, wrench held ready as Tommy scrambled toward the tarp-covered shape in the workshop's corner. The boy's hands trembled as he yanked away the heavy canvas, revealing the backup generator they'd installed after last summer's thunderstorm. "The starter cord," Tommy called out, his voice tight. His fingers found the broken pull mechanism, another item on their endless repair list. Through the workshop's bullet-riddled walls, he spotted more Ferengi soldiers advancing, their damaged armor catching the morning light. Grax lunged at Greg, fragments of crystal armor falling from his massive frame. The commander's strength remained fearsome even as his protection crumbled. Greg deflected a blow with the wrench, the impact sending vibrations up his arms. Stella adjusted her scanner's frequency, creating a modulated pulse that targeted the weakest points of Grax's remaining armor. "The joints," she called out. "Focus on the connection points." Tommy's mind raced back to the previous harvest season, remembering his father's lesson on bypassing the tractor's failed ignition. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, stripping wires and crossing circuits. The generator's engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. Power surged through the workshop's electrical system. The sonic array activated with a high-pitched whine, but several speakers exploded from the sudden current. Tommy ducked as fragments of speaker cones scattered across the floor. High above Montana's morning sky, Captain Xenix's fingers moved across his command console. "Target locks acquired," his weapons officer reported, awaiting final authorization for orbital strike. At Malmstrom Air Force Base, Colonel Harper supervised the rapid modification of sonic crowd control devices. "Match the frequency pattern exactly," he ordered, studying the drone footage of Tommy's original device. "We've got one shot at this." Inside the workshop, the combined assault of Stella's modified scanner and Tommy's reactivated sonic array proved too much for Grax's armor. The crystalline shell shattered with a sound like breaking glass, leaving the commander exposed. His massive form, now vulnerable, still radiated deadly intent. "Fall back!" Grax bellowed to his troops, his voice carrying none of its earlier confidence. The surrounding Ferengi soldiers retreated from the workshop's perimeter, their own compromised armor continuing to deteriorate under the sonic assault. Tommy reached for the generator's control panel, attempting to stabilize the power flow to the remaining speakers. Through gaps in the workshop's walls, He watched the Ferengi soldiers' disorganized withdrawal. Their once-pristine crystal armor now resembled shattered safety glass, held together only by underlying support structures. Greg maintained his defensive position between Grax and Tommy, the wrench steady in his hands. Stella's scanner hummed with dangerous energy as she kept it trained on the commander. Outside, the morning air filled with the sound of approaching aircraft. Colonel Harper's team inbound from Malmstrom with their modified weapons. Above them all, Captain Xenix's warships moved into attack position, their weapon systems charging. The workshop's fate hung in the precarious balance between immediate ground combat and impending orbital strike. Tommy's fingers flew across the generator's controls, knowing each adjustment could mean the difference between survival and annihilation. The remaining speakers creaked under the strain of maintaining the sonic barrier, while Grax's exposed form tensed for what could be either retreat or final assault. The morning sun climbed higher over Montana's plains, illuminating the crystalline debris that marked humanity's first successful defense against the Ferengi invasion force. The crystalline debris scattered across the workshop floor crunched under heavy boots as 3 modified military vehicles rumbled up to the Griffin property. Colonel Harper leaped from the lead vehicle, directing his team to establish a defensive perimeter. Technical Sergeant Mike Rodriguez emerged from the second vehicle, his eyes widening at the sight of Tommy's improvised sonic array through the bullet-riddled walls. "Sir, look at the frequency modulation on that setup," Rodriguez called out, his tablet already syncing with the workshop's electrical emissions. The kids created a perfect harmonic cascade using basic audio equipment. Tommy noticed the military vehicles through a gap in the workshop wall. "Dad, they're here." The remaining speakers hummed with dangerous energy as Colonel Harper's team unloaded their modified sonic weapons. The devices resembled oversized satellite dishes mounted on rotating platforms, each connected to a portable power source. Rodriguez sprinted toward the workshop entrance, ducking under exposed wiring. "Don't adjust those settings," he shouted to Tommy. "We need to match your frequency pattern exactly." His fingers flew across his tablet, transmitting data back to Malmstrom. "Base, are you seeing these modulation patterns? We need every sonic weapon in the arsenal recalibrated to these exact specifications." Above them, Captain Xenix's targeting computers flickered with cascading errors. The crystalline-based systems sparked and sputtered, their molecular structure resonating with the frequencies radiating from below. "Multiple system failures," his weapons officer reported, panic edging into their voice. "The targeting array is shutting down." Commander Grax reached for a small device on his belt, his massive fingers pressing a sequence of commands. "Emergency transport initiated," he growled. Tommy's eyes locked onto the crystalline device. "The same structure," he whispered, remembering how the armor had shattered. His hands moved instinctively to the generator controls, increasing power to the 3 remaining functional speakers. The teleporter's crystal matrix vibrated, then cracked, leaving Grax stranded. Stella stepped forward, her medical scanner displaying complex biological data. "Greg, they're neural pathways, they're partially crystalline. It's why we developed crystalline technology in the first place." She adjusted her scanner's output. "These frequencies could cause severe internal damage if exposure continues." Greg's grip tightened on the wrench as he processed this information, watching Grax's face contort in discomfort. Outside, Colonel Harper's team finished positioning their sonic weapons in a circular pattern around the workshop. The air hummed with overlapping frequencies, creating an invisible barrier that forced the remaining Ferengi soldiers to retreat. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, studying Stella's medical data on his tablet, "we can modify the frequency to target their tech without causing biological harm." His fingers danced across the screen, making precise adjustments. redirecting the resonance to disrupt only artificial crystalline structures. Tommy rushed to his father's astronomy telescope, still mounted near the workshop window from their stargazing session 2 nights ago. Through the lens, he spotted a new vessel entering orbit larger than the others, its hull gleaming with an iridescent shield. "That's Admiral Kex's flagship," Grax said, his voice strained. "You cannot hope to penetrate its experimental shielding." Tommy adjusted the telescope's focus, studying the distortion patterns surrounding the ship. "Look," he called to Rodriguez, "the shield effect, it's just like the heat waves above our grain dryers." His mind raced through acoustic principles. If we combine frequencies, create a resonant pattern. Rodriguez was already calculating. "Colonel, we need to integrate our array with the kid's setup. The shield's harmonic frequency, it's complex, but if we layer the outputs." Admiral Kex's flagship moved into position, its weapons charging despite the system malfunctions plaguing the rest of the fleet. The morning sun glinted off its shields, creating rainbow-like distortions in the atmosphere. Tommy and Rodriguez worked frantically to connect the military sonic weapons to the workshop's electrical system. Colonel Harper coordinated with Malmstrom, preparing for a synchronized broadcast across all frequencies. Greg maintained his guard over Grax, while Stella monitored the Ferengi's biological readings on her scanner. The air crackled with building energy as they combined their sonic arrays, the fate of the Griffin farm and possibly Earth itself hanging on whether Tommy's observation about the flagship's shields would prove correct. Correct. Tommy grabbed his tablet and rushed to Rodriguez's side, his fingers flying across the screen as they integrated the military sonic arrays with his workshop setup. "The backup generator can handle 3 synchronized outputs," Tommy explained, pointing to the power distribution panel. "If we position the vehicles here, here, and here," he traced a triangle on Rodriguez's tactical display, "we can create a vertical field that extends into the atmosphere." Rodriguez nodded, already relaying coordinates to the vehicle crews. "Colonel, we need those arrays precisely aligned, 0.3 degrees variance maximum." The military vehicles rumbled into position around the workshop. Their modified sonic dishes rotated on their mounts, adjusting to create overlapping fields of acoustic energy. Power cables snaked across the ground, connecting to the farm's generator. Above them, Admiral Kex's flagship began its attack run. The massive vessel's experimental shields rippled with iridescent energy as it descended through the upper atmosphere. "Energy spike," a technician called out. "They're charging weapons." Tommy watched through his telescope as the layered acoustic field made contact with the flagship's shields. Rainbow-colored distortions spread across the barrier, matching the heatwave pattern he'd observed earlier. Inside the workshop, Commander Grax stumbled against a workbench. "The shield matrices," he gasped, clutching his head. "They're crystalline-based like our armor, but larger, more complex." Rodriguez's fingers flew across his tablet. "The bigger they are, the more brittle they become." "Tommy, help me adjust these frequency modulators." Stella moved to Grax's side, medical scanner humming. "His neural pathways are showing increasing stress." She turned to Greg. "We need to modify the output to target only artificial crystals. The commander's biological systems are at risk." Greg nodded and began rewiring the remaining workshop speakers. Stella called out specific frequencies as they worked, her medical expertise guiding their adjustments. "Multiple contacts incoming," Colonel Harper announced, studying radar data. "General Howard is redirecting all sonic-capable units to our position. Global defense networks are being updated with our frequency patterns." A new alert blared from Rodriguez's tablet. Captain Xenix's command ship had broken formation, its hull glowing from atmospheric entry. The vessel's trajectory appeared erratic, its navigational systems compromised by spreading crystalline failures. "They're trying to land troops beyond our sonic range," Harper realized. "But their nav systems are failing." Tommy tracked the descending ship through his telescope. The course deviation is increasing at this rate. He performed rapid calculations. They'll crash near Great Falls. Grax pushed himself upright, his massive frame trembling. The shield generators on Kex's flagship, they're powered by trimatrix crystals. Hit the resonance points simultaneously and the entire system will cascade. Rodriguez integrated this information into his frequency calculations. Above them, the flagship's shields flickered violently as the modified sonic array found its mark. The combined acoustic output created visible waves in the air, rising like heat mirages into the sky. Military satellites repositioned, their sensors capturing data as crystalline failures spread through the Ferengi fleet. Ships began losing power, their systems shorting out one by one. But Xenix's command ship continued its uncontrolled descent, its massive bulk now visible to the naked eye. The vessel's hull glowed orange as it punched through the cloud layer, its failing navigation systems unable to correct its course. Tommy watched in horror as the ship's trajectory brought it dangerously close to populated areas. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of the invasion, but potentially thousands of civilian lives. His hands moved to the frequency controls, knowing they needed to find a solution fast. Colonel Harper was already coordinating with regional defense forces, preparing for the worst-case scenario. Through the workshop's damaged walls, more military vehicles appeared on the horizon, racing to join the expanding sonic defense network. The morning air vibrated with increasing acoustic energy as Earth's forces rallied around Tommy's discovery, transforming a farm workshop into humanity's last line of defense against the Ferengi assault. Tommy's eyes tracked the falling command ship through his telescope, his mind racing through calculations. "The navigation crystals," he said, turning to Rodriguez. "We can use them like the pressure regulators on our irrigation system, concentrated pulses to push it where we want." Rodriguez's fingers flew across his tablet. 3 more sonic units just arrived from Malmstrom, if we position them correctly. He sketched a quick diagram. "Colonel, we need those vehicles here, here, and here. We can create a wide-field acoustic corridor." "Lake Fort Peck," Tommy said, pointing northeast on the tactical display. 50 miles out, minimal population, enough water depth to absorb the impact. Colonel Harper grabbed his radio. "All units, emergency deployment pattern Delta. Target Lake Fort Peck for emergency water landing." The new military vehicles roared into position, their sonic arrays extending skyward. Power cables snaked across the ground as technicians integrated them into the expanding network. A military helicopter thundered overhead, touching down in the wheat field. A man in a rumpled lab coat jumped out, clutching a briefcase. "Dr. Wells, Los Alamos," he shouted over the rotors, running toward the workshop. "I need to see those armor fragments." Inside, Stella's medical scanner beeped urgently. Commander Grax slumped against the workbench, his skin taking on a grayish tinge. "His neural pathways are destabilizing," she reported, adjusting her scanner. "The crystalline structures in his brain are resonating with our frequencies." Dr. Wells knelt beside a shattered piece of Ferengi armor, pressing a handheld device against its surface. "Fascinating, the molecular structure is similar to our silicon-based processors, but orders of magnitude more complex." Greg helped Stella stabilize Grax while Wells transmitted his findings to Rodriguez's tablet. "We can modify the output," Rodriguez said, implementing the changes. "Target specific crystalline formations without affecting biological components." Grax's eyes flickered open. "Kuiper Belt," he rasped. "Main staging area, behind Pluto's orbit." His voice faded as consciousness slipped away. A high-pitched whine filled the air as dozens of escape pods ejected from Admiral Kex's failing flagship. The pods scattered across the Montana sky like metallic seeds, their emergency thrusters firing erratically. "Multiple launches detected," Harper announced. tracking 4 to 7 escape pods. Primary target Admiral Kex's pod heading directly for our position. Tommy adjusted his telescope upward as new threats emerged. Drones, hundreds of them, launching from the carrier ships. The automated defense drones swarmed from their motherships, their compact forms more agile than the larger vessels. The existing sonic field rippled harmlessly around them. The miniaturized crystals, Dr. Wells said, studying sensor data. They've engineered them to resist standard frequencies. We need to modulate the output rapidly alternating patterns. Rodriguez and Tommy worked furiously to reprogram their sonic arrays. Like a jackhammer instead of a steady pressure, Tommy explained, implementing the changes. Hit them with pulses they can't adapt to. Above them, Captain Xenix's massive ship continued its descent, now guided by precisely timed sonic pulses. Its trajectory curved gradually northeast, away from populated areas. General Howard's voice crackled over the command channel. NATO forces are converting acoustic weapons worldwide. Template data uploading to all Allied military bases. The first wave of drones reached their position. The modified sonic pulses struck them like invisible hammers, sending them spinning as their crystalline systems shattered. Disabled drones rained down across the farmland. Admiral Kex's escape pod punched through the sonic field, its emergency landing systems deploying as it touched down mere yards from the workshop. Colonel Harper's team surrounded it instantly, weapons ready. Tommy kept his focus on the command ship through his telescope, calling out course corrections as Rodriguez fine-tuned the sonic guidance pulses. The massive vessel's shadow crossed the landscape below, marking its path toward Lake Fort Peck as the morning sun climbed higher in the Montana sky. Tommy's hands moved across his tablet, fine-tuning the acoustic guidance system as Captain Xenix's command ship descended toward Lake Fort Peck. Rodriguez established a network of portable emitters along the vessel's path, repurposing the farm's irrigation control modules to synchronize their timing. Broadcast pattern Delta 7, Rodriguez called out, monitoring the crystalline degradation patterns. Pulses at 6-second intervals. The massive ship responded to each sonic burst, its trajectory adjusting in small but crucial increments. Tommy tracked the descent through his telescope, calling out corrections. Pitch adjustment needed 3 degrees port side. A distant explosion drew their attention skyward as Admiral Kex's escape pod touched down 2 miles from their position. Major David Foster's Marine Quick Reaction Force converged on the landing site within minutes, their vehicles kicking up dust clouds visible from the workshop. Site secured, Foster's voice crackled over the radio. Admiral in custody. Colonel, you need to see this. We've got what appears to be their tactical database. Crystalline storage systems, multiple units. Inside the workshop, Dr. Wells hunched over Commander Grax, his modified scanner humming. Stella adjusted her medical equipment, monitoring the Ferengi's neural patterns. The crystalline structures in their brains, Wells murmured, studying the readouts. They're not just augmentations, they're integrated into their neural pathways. He transmitted the data to Rodriguez's tablet. We need to modify the sonic frequencies immediately. Pattern Epsilon 3 should target only artificial structures. Rodriguez implemented the changes while Tommy coordinated with the lake defense teams. The command ship's shadow stretched across the Montana landscape as it approached the water. Impact in 30 seconds, Tommy announced. All units clear the shoreline. The massive vessel struck Lake Fort Peck at a shallow angle, sending towering waves across the reservoir. Its hull sliced through the water before settling into the depths, creating a semicircle of churning foam. Secondary effect detected, Rodriguez reported, studying sensor data. The water's conducting our sonic frequencies, creating a natural barrier around the crash site. Above them, the defensive drones adjusted their flight patterns, maintaining precise distances from each other. Tommy noticed their spacing and grabbed his tablet, sketching rapidly. "Look at their formation," he said, showing Rodriguez. "They're avoiding resonance interference. If we create overlapping fields here and here." He marked 2 points on the tactical display. Rodriguez nodded, already modifying the broadcast patterns. The sonic pulses forced the drones to cluster together, their own systems creating feedback loops that amplified the destructive frequencies. Lieutenant Sarah Howard arrived from the Air Force Research Laboratory, her vehicle loaded with scanning equipment. She immediately began analyzing armor fragments from Kex's pod, her expression growing concerned. "They've modified the crystal matrix," she reported, examining the pieces through a portable microscope. "Ceramic shock absorbers integrated into the structure. The next wave will be harder to crack." Tommy spread his workshop blueprints across a table, sketching modifications to his sonic array design. "If we combine ultrasonic frequencies with low-frequency pulses," he explained, "we might penetrate the ceramic layers without losing penetration depth." At the lake, recovery teams established a perimeter around the crash site. The water amplified their sonic defenses, creating an impenetrable barrier against Ferengi recovery attempts. Sonar scans revealed the command ship's position, its crystalline systems continuing to deteriorate under the sustained acoustic assault. Major Foster's team transported the captured tactical database to a shielded facility, careful to maintain precise spacing between the crystal memory cores. Each unit contained thousands of data points that could reveal the full scope of the Ferengi invasion plan. Greg monitored the prisoners' vital signs, while Stella adjusted their treatment protocols. Commander Grax's condition stabilized under the modified frequencies, though his neural readings showed lingering effects from the sonic exposure. Tommy's new array design took shape on his workshop table, incorporating elements from both military and agricultural technology. The incoming Ferengi reinforcements would face an evolved defense system, one that combined Earth's ingenuity with hard-won knowledge of their crystalline weaknesses. Lieutenant Howard adjusted her microscope's magnification, revealing the intricate layers within the Ferengi armor fragment. "Tommy, look at this structure." The crystals are sandwiched between ceramic plates, almost like a capacitor design. Tommy leaned in to examine the sample. "That's why our single-frequency attacks aren't as effective anymore. The ceramics are dampening the resonance." He grabbed his tablet, pulling up the sonic array schematics. "But if we hit both materials at their natural frequencies?" "A simultaneous assault on 2 fronts," Rodriguez said, already modifying the emission algorithms. "We'll need to reconfigure the entire network." Inside the hastily constructed containment facility, Dr. Wells supervised the installation of sonic dampeners around the captured Ferengi database. Major Foster's team positioned the crystalline memory cores with precision, maintaining exact distances between each unit. "Power levels at 15%, Foster reported, monitoring the dampening field. "Any higher risks compromising the data integrity." 13 degrees clockwise, Dr. Wells directed as technicians adjusted the final core. "The crystalline matrix is beginning to respond." Initial data streams coming through. The tactical information materialized on their screens detailed specifications for 3 incoming battle groups, each equipped with the new ceramic rainforest technology. Foster transmitted the data to Colonel Harper's command center, while Dr. Wells analyzed the technical specifications. At Lake Fort Peck, Chief Watson's sonar equipment detected unusual patterns emanating from the submerged command ship. He adjusted his hydrophones, isolating the frequencies. "The power core's still active," Watson called out, transmitting the acoustic data to Rodriguez. "These harmonic patterns, they're similar to the frequencies we used to breach their original defenses." Colonel Harper studied the sonar readings. "The water's creating natural resonance chambers. We can use these patterns to calibrate our new arrays." In the medical bay, Stella worked with captured Ferengi medical devices, modifying their output to counteract the neural degradation affecting Admiral Kex and Commander Grax. The prisoner's vital signs stabilized under her adapted treatment protocol. Their neural crystals are realigning, she reported, showing her readings to Dr. Wells. The modified frequencies are allowing natural healing without further degradation. Word spread through the Ferengi ranks. 3 soldiers approached the perimeter, hands raised in surrender. "We seek medical intervention," their spokesman announced. "Our neural systems are failing." The defectors provided crucial details about the ceramic reinforced armor's weaknesses. Tommy incorporated this information into his new emitter design, adapting principles from his farm's grain sorting equipment. "The multi-frequency generator needs to maintain precise timing," he explained to Rodriguez, assembling components on his workbench. "Just like separating wheat from chaff, each material responds differently to specific vibrations." Orbital tracking stations detected Vice Admiral Trax's battle group entering the solar system. The vessels arranged themselves in a complex formation, generating interference patterns designed to neutralize Earth's sonic defenses. "They're creating acoustic corridors," Rodriguez observed, analyzing the tactical display, "trying to punch holes through our defense network." Tommy connected the final circuits in his prototype emitter. The device hummed to life, generating layered wavelength patterns that targeted both ceramic and crystalline structures simultaneously. Initial tests on armor fragments showed promising results. Both materials began to deteriorate under the combined assault. "Chief Watson's harmonic templates were the key," Tommy said, fine-tuning the output. The underwater acoustics revealed exactly how to stress both layers. Colonel Harper coordinated with global defense forces, preparing to integrate the new multi-frequency technology into existing sonic arrays. The modified weapons would give Earth's defenders a fighting chance against Vice Admiral Trax's ceramic reinforced fleet. In the medical bay, Admiral Kex regained consciousness under Stella's modified treatment. His neural readings stabilized, providing hope for a more humane approach to neutralizing the invasion force without causing permanent harm to the Ferengi soldiers. Tommy's new emitter design went into mass production as Vice Admiral Trax's battle group approached Earth orbit. The defense network expanded, incorporating the complex harmonic patterns discovered at Lake Fort Peck. Each sonic array now carried the potential to breach both ceramic and crystalline layers of the reinforced Ferengi armor. Tommy adjusted the final calibration on his multi-frequency emitter as Vice Admiral Trax's battle group descended through the upper atmosphere. The vessels moved in a precise geometric pattern, their ceramic reinforced hulls gleaming in the morning sunlight. "Look at their rotation sequence," Tommy said, pointing to the tactical display. "It matches the timing cycle we used for the Western field irrigation." He pulled up the old control software, comparing the rhythmic patterns. 8-second intervals, just like the sprinkler heads. Rodriguez nodded, fingers flying across his console. "If we sync our sonic pulses to their shield rotation." He integrated Tommy's irrigation algorithms into the defense grid's targeting system. "Got it. Transmitting timing data to all emitter stations." The workshop buzzed with activity as Dr. Wells examined fragments of Admiral Kex's escape pod through an electron microscope. "The ceramic crystal interface is showing microfractures," he reported, adjusting the magnification. "These stress points form a predictable pattern along the material boundary." Lieutenant Howard leaned in to study the display. The crystalline structure attempts to flex, but the ceramic plates resist deformation. She traced the fracture lines with a laser pointer. Each sonic impact compounds the structural weakness. Outside, Colonel Harper's teams positioned mobile emitter arrays in a circular pattern around the Griffin property. The devices hummed to life, generating overlapping fields of sonic interference that reached skyward like invisible nets. Establishing containment zone, Harper reported over the tactical network. All stations synchronized to pattern Omega-6. The Ferengi battle group responded to the sonic barrier, their ships tightening formation. The vessels rotated in perfect synchronization, distributing the acoustic stress across their armored hulls. "They're locked into the pattern," Rodriguez observed, tracking their movement. "Can't break formation without exposing their weak points." Chief Watson's voice crackled over the radio from Lake Fort Peck. New harmonic signature detected from the submerged command ship, transmitting data now. The acoustic patterns appeared on Tommy's screen, complex waveforms generated by the pressure-restricted crystalline systems. Tommy integrated the underwater harmonics into his emitter's output. The device pulsed with new intensity, its layered frequencies targeting both the ceramic plates and their crystalline cores. A captured Ferengi drone suspended in the testing chamber shuddered as its armor began to deteriorate. "Material failure in 60 seconds, Howard reported, monitoring the drone's structural integrity. "No damage to internal organic components." Major Foster burst into the workshop, clutching a data tablet. "We've decoded more of the tactical database. 2 more battle groups incoming: Admiral Zena and Fleet Commander Vax." He displayed technical specifications for their experimental weapon systems. "They're designed to neutralize sonic-based defenses." Tommy studied the weapon's data, recognition flickering in his eyes. He rushed to his old filing cabinet, pulling out dusty schematics for the farm's grain storage system. "We used acoustic shielding to prevent vibration damage during transport," he explained, spreading the drawings across his workbench. "The principles are identical." Above the workshop, Vice Admiral Trax's ships pressed against the sonic containment field. Their rotating shields generated shifting patterns of interference, probing for weaknesses in Earth's defenses. "Power readings spiking," Rodriguez warned, watching his monitors. "The multi-frequency emitter is draining our grid capacity." Tommy connected additional power cells to his prototype, stabilizing its output. The device's harmonics adjusted automatically to match the Ferengi shield rotation, creating cascading waves of destructive interference that targeted the ship's structural weaknesses. "Look at their hull segments," Howard pointed to the tactical display. "The ceramic plates are separating at the seams." She magnified the image, revealing spreading fracture patterns that matched her laboratory analysis. The battle group's formation tightened further as they attempted to establish their beachhead over Montana. Earth's overlapping sonic fields forced them into an increasingly constrained flight pattern, their defensive options diminishing with each synchronized rotation. Tommy reached for his tablet, already sketching modifications to amplify his emitter's range. The arrival of Admiral Zena and Fleet Commander Vax's technologically superior forces would require more than raw power. It would demand the kind of innovative thinking that had transformed his family's farm into humanity's first line of defense. Tommy's fingers flew across his tablet as the first results from the multi-frequency network appeared on the displays. Vice Admiral Trax's ships exhibited visible distortions along their armored hulls, not the catastrophic failures they'd achieved against pure crystalline defenses, but definite structural compromise. "There," Rodriguez pointed to a fluctuating pattern in the shield harmonics. The ceramic plates shift position every 8.6 seconds, just like the irrigation coverage gaps. The tactical display showed spreading stress patterns across multiple vessels, matching the laboratory fracture analysis. Lieutenant Howard adjusted the targeting parameters, synchronizing the sonic pulses to exploit these brief vulnerabilities. A military transport touched down outside the workshop, and Dr. Marcus Howard emerged carrying several large devices. "Atmospheric resonance amplifiers," he announced, setting the equipment on Tommy's workbench. "DARPA's weather modification prototypes." Tommy examined the cylindrical devices, recognition lighting his features. The resonance chamber design is nearly identical to Dad's grain silos. He traced the internal structure diagrams. The atmosphere itself becomes the amplification medium. Chief Watson's voice cut through their discussion. Recovery team at Lake Fort Peck here. We've located intact Ferengi comm systems in the wreckage. The crystals are singing. Colonel Harper patched the audio feed through the workshop speakers. Complex harmonics filled the room interference patterns that visibly disrupted the tactical formation displays. Deploy the naval sonic buoys, Harper ordered. Full perimeter around the crash site. In the medical bay, Admiral Keck stirred under Stella's modified treatment protocols. Trax's shield rotation, he said, voice weak but urgent. The timing must remain precise. Disrupt the sequence, and the entire formation becomes vulnerable. Rodriguez integrated this insight into the targeting algorithms. The defense network adjusted, sending precisely timed sonic pulses to desynchronize the Ferengi ship's protective rotation. Multiple shield failures detected, Lieutenant Howard reported. Their formation is breaking down. The victory was short-lived. Long-range sensors lit up with new contacts. Admiral Zena's battle group accelerating toward Earth. Lieutenant Howard's analysis of their specifications scrolled across the main screen. Phase shift technology, she read, expression grim. The ceramic armor adapts to sonic frequencies. Our current combinations will be useless within 6 hours of exposure. Tommy walked to the grain sorting equipment in the corner of his workshop. Watch this, he said, activating the machine. Different materials separated based on density as varying vibration patterns passed through them. We need to create a sonic strobe effect, hit them with multiple frequency patterns faster than their armor can adapt. He modified the emitter code, implementing rapid-fire frequency shifts. The prototype hummed with new complexity, generating wavelength patterns that shifted faster than the Ferengi phase shift technology could compensate for. Dr. Wells emerged from the database analysis station. I've found references to Fleet Commander Vax's weapons systems. They're specifically designed to counter sonic-based defenses. The workshop transformed into a hive of activity. Tommy's workbench became crowded with components as they developed contingency measures. Dr. Marcus Howard's atmospheric amplifiers integrated seamlessly with the existing network, using Earth's natural atmospheric layers to strengthen and propagate their sonic assault. Above the Griffin property, Vice Admiral Trax's ship struggled against the combined effects of the sonic strobe technique and the atmospheric resonance amplification. Their unsuppressed formation deteriorated as cascading timing failures disrupted their shield synchronization. Admiral Zena's phase shift technology isn't the only problem, Dr. Wells said, examining newly decoded tactical data. Vax's countermeasures will render conventional sonic attacks completely ineffective. Tommy studied the farm's acoustic engineering systems, the grain silos, irrigation timing, material separation processes. Each represented a different approach to manipulating sound and vibration. He began sketching new configurations, adapting agricultural solutions to meet unprecedented military challenges. The workshop screens tracked multiple threat vectors. Trax's failing but still dangerous battle group, Zena's approaching phase shift vessels, and Vax's sonosimmune force behind them. Tommy's prototype emitter pulsed with increasing complexity as they refined their defenses, preparing to face wave after wave of advancing Ferengi technology. A military transport helicopter touched down outside the workshop, its rotors whipping dust across the yard. Dr. James Sullivan emerged, directing his team to unload specialized acoustic equipment from his industrial sound dampening research facility. Your sonic emission patterns are promising, Sullivan said, examining Tommy's prototype. But we can amplify the effect using principles from factory noise control. He gestured to a series of modified industrial dampeners. These were designed to protect workers from heavy machinery vibrations. We can reverse the wave propagation to focus the acoustic energy instead. Tommy studied the equipment schematics. The resonance chamber design matches our grain handling systems. He traced a finger along the blueprints. If we integrate these with the existing emitter array. Rodriguez interrupted from his monitoring station. Trax's ships are adjusting their rotation sequences, trying to compensate for the sonic strobes. Get those dampeners online, Tommy ordered, helping Sullivan's team position the equipment. Lieutenant Howard, coordinate with Colonel Harper's ground teams. Howard nodded, dispatching orders through the tactical network. Moving mobile arrays to match the new configuration. Sullivan examined the grain silos visible through the workshop windows. Those cylindrical structures, they're perfect acoustic amplifiers. He pulled up complex wave propagation models on his tablet. We can install modified speakers inside, create focused sound funnels. Tommy's eyes lit up with recognition. The same principle we used for moisture distribution. He grabbed his tools and headed for the nearest silo. Rodriguez, patch the emitter controls through to my portable unit. Above, Trax's battle group split apart, vessels separating into smaller tactical units. The defensive formation that had protected them now worked against their advantage as individual ships struggled to maintain shield rotation. Their armor integrity is failing, Howard reported, tracking multiple hull breaches. The ceramic plating can't handle the focused acoustic stress. Sullivan directed his team to install resonators inside 3 grain silos, converting the agricultural infrastructure into massive sonic weapons. The cylindrical chambers amplified their acoustic output exponentially, extending the effective range of their defense network. In the medical bay, Admiral Keck stirred. "Zena's ships," he muttered, drawing Stella's attention. "The phase-shift drives. They cycle every 4 to 3 minutes. Shields drop to minimum during recharge." Tommy received the intelligence through his comm link while calibrating the silo resonators. "Rodriguez, start tracking energy signatures from the approaching battle group. We need precise timing on those recharge cycles." Dr. Wells burst from his laboratory, clutching data printouts. The crystalline neural patterns, they respond to specific frequencies. He spread the results across a workbench. We can disrupt their combat effectiveness without causing permanent damage. The workshop transformed into a coordination center as Sullivan's acoustic expertise merged with the farm's repurposed technology. Industrial dampeners lined the perimeter, their wave patterns precisely tuned to exploit the weaknesses in Ferengi armor design. "Energy spike from the outer system," Rodriguez called out. "Fleet Commander Vax is testing something, getting weird frequency patterns." Tommy pulled up the farm's moisture sensor data. These algorithms adapt to environmental changes automatically. He began modifying the defensive software. We can use the same principles to counter their sonic neutralizers. The first converted grain silo powered up, its massive chamber generating focused acoustic beams that struck a separated Ferengi vessel. The ship's ceramic plating cracked under the assault, fragments spinning away as the hull breached. "Global Command is requesting our specifications," Howard reported. "Agricultural facilities worldwide are being converted into defensive positions." Sullivan examined the readings from their modified equipment. "The atmospheric resonance amplifiers are extending our effective range by 300%. He adjusted several control parameters. Each silo becomes a focal point for the entire network. Through the workshop windows, they watched Trax's forces scatter, their coordinated defense shattered by the agricultural infrastructure turned weapon. But radar displays showed Admiral Zena's battle group approaching, their phase-shift technology presenting a new challenge to Earth's improvised defenses. Tommy accessed the farm's environmental monitoring systems. extracting algorithms that had once protected crops from moisture damage. As he integrated them into the defensive network, Sullivan's team continued upgrading the silos, transforming the heart of the Griffin farm into humanity's most powerful sonic weapon. Tommy input the final parameters into the farm's environmental monitoring system, adapting its moisture detection algorithms for the defensive network. A series of rapid beeps from Rodriguez's station drew his attention. Energy signatures from Zena's ships match Admiral Kex's intel, Rodriguez said, fingers dancing across his console. 4 to 3 minute cycles, like clockwork. The workshop door swung open as Dr. Nathan Cooper strode in, his team wheeling in racks of sophisticated electronic equipment. Acoustical Society of America, he announced, extending a hand to Tommy. We've brought specialized harmonic analyzers that should help optimize those grain silo resonators. Cooper's team immediately began setting up their equipment, connecting analyzers to the defensive network's monitoring systems. The screens filled with complex waveform displays showing the sonic output from each converted silo. Look at this resonance pattern, Cooper said, pointing to oscillating curves. We can increase the effective range by modifying the chamber geometry. He pulled up the silo schematics. Same principle as your irrigation timing system, automated frequency adjustment based on environmental feedback. Chief Watson's voice crackled through the comm system. Lake Fort Peck team reporting something strange. The crystalline components we recovered their poolsing in sync with the tide cycles. Dr. Wells rushed to analyze the incoming data. The harmonic frequencies are creating interference patterns with the phase shift signatures. He turned to Colonel Harper. We need sonar buoys around every major water body. Harper nodded, already coordinating with Global Command. United Nations is establishing GADN Global Agricultural Defense Network. Every farming complex with suitable infrastructure is being converted. Tommy watched the tactical display as new defensive positions appeared across the globe. Agricultural facilities transformed into weapon platforms, their familiar structures now serving as humanity's shield. Incoming transmission from the Asteroid Belt Monitoring Station, Rodriguez called out. Fleet Commander Vax is testing something big, creating visible distortions in the solar wind. Dr. Wells compared the readings to the decoded Ferengi database. These energy patterns suggest crystalline-based counter-frequency generation. They could turn our sonic attacks back against us. Rodriguez activated the farm's acoustic crop protection system, studying its targeted repulsion frequencies. We can adapt these selective barriers to prevent sonic feedback loops. He began modifying the defensive protocols. Create a frequency shield around our installations. The workshop's main display flashed red. Admiral Zena's battle group had entered the upper atmosphere, their phase shift technology creating rippling auroral distortions across the sky. Global network synchronized, Cooper reported, monitoring the harmonic analyzer outputs. Silo resonators operating at peak efficiency. Tommy activated the targeting system. Rodriguez, initiate sonic pulse sequence on my mark. Time it with their shield recharge cycle. The converted grain silos hummed with building power. Across the globe, thousands of agricultural facilities prepared to coordinate their first unified defense. Cooper's equipment tracked the propagating sound waves as they formed an invisible barrier in the sky. Phase shift cycle in 3, 2, 1. Rodriguez counted down. Tommy executed the attack sequence. The grain silos released precisely timed sonic pulses, their frequencies optimized by Cooper's analyzers. The atmospheric resonance amplifiers extended their range, creating overlapping fields of destructive harmonics. Above, Admiral Zena's ships flickered as their phase shift technology cycled down for recharge. In that brief moment of vulnerability, Earth's agricultural defense network struck. The coordinated sonic assault penetrated their weakened defenses, sending visible shockwaves through their formation. Direct hits on multiple vessels, Rodriguez reported. But their armor is already adapting to our frequency patterns. Cooper adjusted the harmonic analyzers, switching to variable resonance mode. The automated system will modify our output faster than their phase shift technology can compensate. Through the workshop windows, Tommy watched the sky ripple with energy as Earth's improvised defense system engaged the Ferengi fleet. But his attention kept returning to the long-range sensors showing Fleet Commander Vax's approaching force. Their experimental weapons cast strange shadows in the solar wind, heralding challenges that would push their agricultural adaptations to their absolute limits. The solar wind distortions from Vax's approaching force momentarily distracted Tommy from the immediate threat Admiral Zena's battle group, executing a precise atmospheric entry maneuver. The Ferengi vessels arranged themselves in an intricate double helix pattern, energy conduits forming between ships like glowing threads in the dawn sky. That formation, Admiral Keck said from his medical bay cot, voice stronger now. They're sharing phase shift power, eliminating individual recharge cycles. Rodriguez's hands flew across his monitoring station, confirming power transfers between vessels. They're maintaining continuous shield coverage. Tommy studied the moisture detection readouts, recognizing familiar patterns in the energy flows. These power signatures match our grain moisture tracking algorithms. He pulled up the farm's sensor network interface. We can repurpose the spoilage prevention system to map their power distribution. Dr. Cooper connected his harmonic analyzers to Tommy's terminal. The crystalline components in their transfer conduits are generating distinct acoustic signatures. He adjusted several parameters, revealing a complex web of energy pathways, same material as their armor and weapons systems. Global Agricultural Defense Network reports ready status, Lieutenant Howard announced. Facilities in Kansas, Ukraine, and Argentina have completed sonic emitter conversion. Tommy integrated the moisture detection algorithms with Cooper's acoustic analysis. The main display transformed into a three-dimensional model of Zena's battle group, power flows highlighted in pools in red. Rodriguez realigned the silo targeting systems. Will track those energy corridors between ships. Implementing new firing solution, Rodriguez confirmed. He accessed the irrigation timing controls, adapting them for the sonic defense grid, synchronizing pulses across all silos. The first coordinated strike launched from the converted grain silos. Focused acoustic beams struck precisely where ships exchanged power, creating rippling disruptions through the Ferengi formation. Several vessels flickered as their phase shift fields destabilized. Dr. Wells burst into the command center, waving printouts from Lake Fort Peck. The sonar readings combined with Admiral Kecks's tactical data show a critical weakness. Multiple harmonic frequencies destabilize their phase shift technology. Like Dad's grain sorter, Tommy said, remembering the old machine's variable vibration patterns. Different frequencies to separate different materials. Cooper adjusted his analyzers. We can create destructive interference patterns inside their power distribution network. He transmitted new acoustic profiles to the global defense grid, each silo targeting a distinct frequency band. Warning indicators flashed across Rodriguez's station. Silo 3 showing structural fatigue. These power levels exceed design specifications. Tommy accessed the farm's maintenance protocols. Implement equipment rotation based on our crop cycling system. He designed a staggered firing pattern, alternating active and cooling periods while maintaining coverage. Through the workshop windows, they watched Zena's ship struggle to maintain formation. Energy conduits flickered and failed as the coordinated sonic assault disrupted their power-sharing network. Individual vessels began dropping out of the double helix pattern, shields failing as they lost access to the group's shared power. Multiple hull breaches detected, Rodriguez reported. Their formation is breaking down. But Tommy's attention turned to the long-range sensors. Fleet Commander Vax's battle group accelerated inward, their counter-frequency weapons already affecting satellite communications. The distant vessels cast expanding shadows in the solar wind, heralding technologies that would push Earth's agricultural defenses beyond their limits. Rodriguez's console emitted a series of urgent alerts. Silo 5 developing stress fractures. The whole network is showing signs of material fatigue. Transfer power to the backup units, Tommy ordered, implementing his rotation system. He watched the tactical display as more of Xena's ships lost power-sharing capability, their sophisticated formation dissolving under Earth's improvised sonic weapons. The sky above the Griffin farm rippled with energy discharges as disabled Ferengi vessels began falling from formation. But Tommy focused on strengthening their defensive network, knowing they would need every functioning silo to face Vax's approaching force. The real-time moisture detection system tracked failing power conduits throughout Xena's battle group, identifying targets for their increasingly strained acoustic weapons. Multiple explosions lit the dawn sky as power conduits failed across Xena's battle group. The sophisticated double-helix formation collapsed, sending Ferengi vessels plummeting toward Earth's surface. Several ships carved glowing trails through the atmosphere, their emergency landing systems activating seconds before impact. 3 vessels down in Sector 7, Rodriguez reported, marking crash sites on the tactical display. 2 more attempting controlled descent near the western wheat fields. Colonel Harper coordinated with rapid response teams through his comm unit. Sierra teams, establish containment perimeter. Convert empty storage buildings 4 through 8 into temporary holding facilities. Tommy accessed the farm's infrastructure controls as warning indicators flashed across his station. Silo temperatures reaching critical levels. We need a cooling solution fast. The grain aeration system, Rodriguez said, pulling up the mechanical schematics. We can repurpose the ventilation ducts to cool the sonic emitters. They worked quickly to integrate the farm's massive air handling equipment into the defensive network. Cool air flowed through modified ducting, reducing the thermal load on the overtaxed silos. Temperature gauges stabilized as the agricultural cooling system proved its worth. A familiar voice called from the workshop entrance. "Tommy, I heard you needed some structural engineering expertise." Professor Thompson. Tommy turned to see his former agricultural engineering instructor striding in, followed by a team carrying diagnostic equipment. Marcus Thompson, Montana State University. He introduced himself to Colonel Harper. My team specializes in industrial acoustics and grain handling system design. Thompson's team spread out across the facility, attaching sensors to the silo walls. These resonance patterns match what we see in modern grain elevators, Thompson said, studying the readouts. We can reinforce the support structures using similar principles. Dr. Wells burst into the command center clutching a tablet. Analysis complete on Vax's counter-frequency weapons. They're generating inverse waveforms to neutralize our sonic defenses. Tommy accessed the farm's pest control database. Just like our acoustic deterrent system, it cancels specific frequencies to target different species. He began modifying the defense protocols. If we rotate through multiple frequency bands, their countermeasures won't be able to lock on, Rodriguez finished, implementing the changes. Initiating variable frequency protocol across all active silos. Outside, military vehicles surrounded the crashed Ferengi ships. Security teams escorted captured crew members to the converted grain storage buildings. Colonel Harper coordinated with Global Command as similar scenes played out at agricultural facilities worldwide. Incoming data from NASA weather satellites, Rodriguez announced. Atmospheric distortion patterns affecting upper defensive grid. Route it through the greenhouse environmental controls, Tommy instructed. We can adjust sonic output based on temperature and pressure variations. Professor Thompson examined the structural integrity readings. The reinforced support design is holding, adding cotton gin air handlers to amplify acoustic output in sectors 3 and 6. Warning klaxons sounded as Fleet Commander Vax's battle group entered the outer defense perimeter. Their counter-frequency weapons created shimmering patterns in the sky, distorting the very air around their ships. Energy signature analysis complete, Rodriguez reported. Their weapons require precise calibration, similar to the grain moisture meters. Environmental factors could disrupt their targeting systems. Tommy integrated the weather satellite feeds with the defense grid controls. The automated system began adjusting frequency outputs based on atmospheric conditions, maintaining optimal effectiveness while preserving the converted agricultural infrastructure. Admiral Zena's remaining ships executed a desperate assault on the defensive network, but their attacks were uncoordinated without the power-sharing formation. Meanwhile, Vax's vessels pressed forward, their sophisticated countermeasures creating expanding ripples of interference in the upper atmosphere. Frequency rotation protocol active across all sectors, Rodriguez confirmed. Global Agricultural Defense Network responding to automated environmental adjustments. Through the workshop windows, Tommy watched the approaching Ferengi fleet. Their counter-frequency weapons painted the sky with dancing patterns of energy, testing Earth's improvised defenses. The converted silos hummed with power as the cooling system maintained safe operating temperatures, ready to prove that human agricultural ingenuity could stand against alien military technology. Tommy activated the frequency rotation protocols as Vax's battle group crossed into range. The converted silos shifted their acoustic output in rapid, unpredictable patterns, each change synchronized across the global network. Through the command center windows, the sky rippled with energy as Ferengi counter-frequency weapons attempted to lock onto the shifting sonic waves. Rotation sequence holding steady, Rodriguez reported, monitoring the automated system. Power distribution remained stable across all sectors. The workshop door burst open as a man in a rumpled lab coat rushed in, carrying an array of specialized equipment. Dr. Richard Martinez, Los Alamos National Laboratory, he announced, setting up his gear beside Tommy's station. I've been analyzing your frequency patterns. The rotation principle is sound, but we can optimize it further. Martinez connected his instruments to the defense grid interface. These wavelength shifts mirror industrial noise cancellation systems, if we adjust the timing. His fingers flew across the controls, fine-tuning the rotation sequences. A sharp tone from Rodriguez's console interrupted them. Admiral Zena's remaining vessels advancing on Sector 4. They're exploiting gaps between cooling cycles. Tommy pulled up the ventilation system controls, implementing automated timing adjustments. He modified the farm's environmental management protocols, creating a rolling pattern of active and cooling periods across the silo network, integrating feed from the Dairy Coalition cooling systems. On the tactical display, Zena's ships encountered a solid wall of sonic interference. The automated timing system maintained continuous coverage while preventing equipment overload, thwarting their attempt to breach Earth's defenses. Colonel Harper, this is Professor Thompson, the engineer's voice crackled over the comm. Structural reinforcement complete on primary installations. The new support framework is holding. Martinez studied the incoming sensor data. These counter-frequency weapons require calibration time, similar to industrial acoustic sampling systems. He modified the grain moisture sensors, creating an early warning network. We'll detect their targeting signals before they can establish a lock. Chief Watson's voice cut through the command channel, Lake Fort Peck to Griffin Command. Underwater sonic transmissions are disrupting their calibration sequence, requesting authorization to deploy modified irrigation pumps. Confirmed, Tommy responded. Coordinate with global water management teams. Target their calibration windows. Through the workshop windows, they watched Vax's vessels encounter the enhanced defensive grid. The ship's counter-frequency weapons created brilliant displays of energy in the upper atmosphere, but failed to establish stable targeting solutions against the constantly shifting sonic patterns. New contacts, Rodriguez announced. Multiple Ferengi vessels approaching defense installations worldwide. The tactical display lit up with engagement zones as Vax's battle group launched their coordinated assault. Tommy's frequency rotation protocol spread across the global network, agricultural facilities worldwide transforming into active defensive positions. Sugar processing facilities online, Colonel Harper reported. Crystallization tanks amplifying sonic output by 300%. Martinez adjusted his instruments as new data poured in. The counter-frequency weapons are attempting to adapt, modifying rotation sequences to compensate. Tommy integrated the underwater sonic network with the primary defense grid. Modified irrigation pumps activated around lakes and reservoirs worldwide, creating layers of interference that protected the main sonic emitters. Vax's sophisticated weapons encountered a defense system that grew more resilient with each attack. Structural integrity holding at 97%, Professor Thompson reported. The reinforced silos are maintaining optimal output levels. Rodriguez monitored the global network as Vax's forces pressed their attack. All agricultural defense installations responding to automated protocols. Frequency rotation, maintaining effectiveness across all sectors. The command center hummed with activity as Tommy coordinated the worldwide defensive network. Earth's converted farming infrastructure stood firm against Vax's onslaught, proving that human agricultural ingenuity could match the most advanced Ferengi weapons. The sky above the Griffin farm erupted in dazzling patterns as Vax's battle group engaged Earth's defenses in full force. Multiple Ferengi vessels concentrated their fire on key sonic emitter installations, their counter-frequency weapons creating shimmering waves of destructive interference. Energy spike detected, Rodriguez called out, fingers flying across his console. They're focusing concentrated beams on defensive nodes 3, 7, and 12. Tommy adjusted the rotation protocols, watching as the automated system struggled to compensate. Implementing emergency frequency shifts. Dr. Martinez, we need those calibration adjustments now. A transmission cut through the command channel. Griffin Command, this is Master Chief Wilson at Lake Fort Peck. My team has modified the underwater transmitter array, requesting integration with primary defense grid. Tommy pulled up the aquatic defense schematics. Connecting now. Chief, your signal strength is incredible. Modified Navy SEAL demolition protocols, Wilson replied. These irrigation pumps generate better pressure waves than our tactical charges, activating defense perimeter. The tactical display showed a new layer of protection emerging as precise sonic pulses propagated through the water network. Ferengi ships attempting low-altitude approaches encountered walls of invisible force, their hulls vibrating under the assault. Dr. Martinez's instruments detected a pattern in the enemy countermeasures. Tommy, look at these atmospheric readings. Their weapons lose coherence in turbulent air conditions. Just like our pest control systems during storm season, Tommy said, accessing the farm's weather database. Rodriguez, patch me through to the agricultural processing centers. Online with all facilities, Rodriguez confirmed. This is Griffin Command. Activate all industrial drying fans. Maximum power, variable dispersal patterns. Tommy watched as massive ventilation systems designed for crop processing created artificial windstorms around key defensive installations. Through the workshop windows, They observed Vax's energy beams distorting and scattering in the turbulent air. Professor Thompson's voice crackled over the comm system. Structural integrity holding. The reinforced silos are weathering the artificial storms. Rodriguez's console lit up with new data. Sugar processing facilities reporting successful resonance generation. Temperature and pressure variations in the crystallization tanks are creating havoc with enemy targeting systems. The workshop door slid open as Dr. Marcus Howard rushed in, his team wheeling in sleek, experimental equipment. Quantum harmonic generators, he announced, connecting the devices to Tommy's control station. They'll allow multiband frequency projection. Colonel Harper coordinated the integration of Howard's prototypes into the global network. All sectors prepare for quantum harmonic enhancement, maintain rotating coverage protocols. Tommy implemented the new capabilities across the defensive grid. The converted silos now projected complex, overlapping frequency patterns that the Ferengi countermeasures couldn't effectively neutralize. Enemy vessels adjusting tactics, Rodriguez reported. They're attempting atmospheric saturation with counter-frequency pulses. Grain moisture sensors detecting energy buildup, Tommy responded, initiating preemptive frequency shifts. The early warning network, originally designed to protect stored grain, now gave Earth's defenders precious seconds to adapt. Vax's saturation attack dissipated harmlessly as defensive installations adjusted their output before enemy weapons could establish targeting solutions. Dr. Howard monitored the quantum harmonic generator's performance. Multiple frequency bands maintaining stability. Power distribution optimal across all sectors. New energy signatures detected, Rodriguez announced, studying his readings. Ferengi vessels are powering up unknown systems. Tommy integrated the latest sensor data from the agricultural monitoring network. Whatever Vax planned next, Earth's converted farming facilities stood ready to adapt and respond. The defensive grid hummed with power as the combined agricultural and military technologies maintained their protective shield around the planet. A blinding flash erupted from Vax's flagship, drawing every eye in the command center. A massive crystalline structure unfurled from the vessel's hull, its faceted surface catching sunlight in prismatic patterns. Energy readings off the scale, Rodriguez reported, his console flooding with data. The array is generating synchronized counterfrequencies across our entire defensive bandwidth. Tommy observed the atmospheric distortions surrounding Vax's fleet as they settled into a high orbital formation. The crystalline weapon's output created visible ripples in the sky, like heat waves over hot pavement. But something about the energy signature tugged at his memory. Rodriguez, compare this pattern to our grain moisture logs from last summer's lightning storms. The technical sergeant overlaid the data streams. Perfect match, sir. The resonance frequencies are nearly identical. Just like our sensors going haywire during electrical storms, Tommy said, pulling up the farm's lightning protection schematics. We can use that. Start converting the surge suppressors into electromagnetic pulse generators. Dr. Howard Mitchell burst through the workshop door, his silver hair disheveled. I saw the energy readings from my lab in Kansas. You'll need this. He placed a modified crop scanner on Tommy's workstation. It's designed to generate controlled electromagnetic fields for soil analysis. Dr. Mitchell, your timing is perfect, Tommy said. We're converting the lightning protection grid. Mitchell examined the defensive network displays. The grain dryers. Their metal frameworks are ideal for electromagnetic transmission. With their existing power infrastructure, we could create a global pulse network. Colonel Harper's voice crackled over the comm. Griffin Command, military engineering teams are standing by. What do you need? Access to every industrial grain dryer in the defense network, Mitchell replied. We'll need to modify their power distribution systems. Tommy integrated the electromagnetic pulse protocols into the main defense grid. Above them, Vax's crystalline array painted the sky with interference patterns, probing Earth's sonic defenses. Each pulse from the converted grain dryers created localized disruptions in the weapon's output. Lake Fort Peck reporting, Chief Watson transmitted. The Ferengi Command ship's power core is showing unusual reactions to our electromagnetic pulses, some kind of resonance effect. Professor Thompson's analysis appeared on Tommy's screen. The old grain bins, he highlighted the metal structures. Their composition makes them perfect for focusing electromagnetic emissions, if we time the pulses with our sonic output. Tommy implemented Thompson's calculations. The combined sonic and electromagnetic fields created overlapping zones of interference. On the tactical display, Vax's ships struggled to maintain their targeting solutions as their crystalline navigation systems encountered the disruption. Enemy fleet adjusting power distribution, Rodriguez announced. They're strengthening defensive systems at the expense of weapons capacity. Tommy studied the readouts, remembering the farm's automated grain sorting systems. Like the sorters switching modes to handle different crops, they could exploit the enemy's power fluctuations. All stations, he transmitted, prepare for coordinated sonic and electromagnetic burst. Target their weapons arrays when they shift power to shields. The modified grain dryers hummed with building energy as Earth's defenders readied their counterattack. Above them, Vax's crystalline weapon continued its assault, its effectiveness diminishing with each electromagnetic pulse from the converted agricultural equipment below. Rodriguez's sensors detected new power signatures from the Ferengi fleet. They're attempting to reconfigure their weapon array, crystalline structure showing signs of stress. Maintain electromagnetic interference, Tommy ordered. Don't let them stabilize their calibration. He watched the tactical display as Earth's hybrid defense system pressed its advantage, forcing Vax to choose between protecting his ships and maintaining his offensive capabilities. Tommy tracked the power fluctuations across Vax's fleet through his modified grain monitoring system. The familiar patterns caught his attention, the same energy distribution curves he'd seen countless times when the farm's sorting equipment diverted too much power to its cooling systems. Look at these readings, he said, highlighting the data for Rodriguez. Their defensive systems are drawing massive power, just like our grain sorter when it overheats. Major Foster's analysis team confirmed Tommy's observation. Sir, we're detecting critical thermal signatures from their crystalline array. The heat pattern matches overworked grain drying equipment. Through the command center's windows, the massive crystalline structure glowed with concentrated energy, its faceted surface revealing hairline fractures that spread like frost across glass. Doctor. Mitchell rushed to Tommy's station, his modified crop scanner displaying detailed structural analysis. These microfractures, Mitchell pointed to the spreading patterns. They're responding to specific sonic frequencies. Rodriguez, correlate these readings with our defensive output. Rodriguez's fingers flew across his console. Matching patterns found. Their power distribution is creating structural weaknesses. Tommy accessed the farm's equipment management software, integrating its timing protocols into the defense grid. Dr. Mitchell, can we synchronize the electromagnetic pulses with these fracture patterns? Already on it, Mitchell replied, adjusting his converted grain dryer controls. Calculating optimal pulse frequency now. Colonel Harper's voice cut through the tactical chatter. Griffin Command, sugar processing facilities report ready for electromagnetic focusing. Tommy implemented the new attack protocol, coordinating the sugar mill's crystallization chambers with the modified grain silos. The defensive network transformed into an orchestrated weapons platform, targeting Vax's fleet with precisely timed combinations of sonic waves and electromagnetic pulses. Energy distribution detected across enemy vessels, Rodriguez reported. They can't maintain stable power levels between weapons and shields. Through the tactical display, they watched Vax's ship struggle against the synchronized assault. The crystalline array's glow intensified as it absorbed more power, its structural integrity deteriorating under the combined attack. New power signatures, Rodriguez announced, his instruments detecting unusual energy patterns. Secondary systems activating across multiple vessels. Tommy studied the readings, noting the familiar efficiency curves from his agricultural systems. They're preparing backup weapons. Rodriguez, maintain power reserves in all converted facilities. We need to stay flexible, like our multifunction harvesting equipment. Professor Thompson's analysis appeared on the main screen. Crystalline array showing major structural compromise. Temperature readings exceed all previous measurements. The massive weapon's surface now displayed visible cracks, its projected interference patterns becoming erratic and unstable. But Tommy focused on Rodriguez's secondary readings, watching as new energy signatures built up within Vax's support vessels. "Doctor Mitchell," Tommy called out, "we need to modify our pulse generators for multiple frequency bands. Configure them like our variable speed grain processing systems." Mitchell nodded, already adjusting his equipment. "Implementing adaptive frequency protocols. We'll match whatever they throw at us." The workshop hummed with activity as Earth's defenders prepared for Vax's next move. Their agricultural technology, converted from peaceful farming equipment to sophisticated weapons, stood ready to adapt and respond to new threats. Above them, the crystalline array's light flickered as fractures spread across its surface, while hidden weapons charged within the Ferengi fleet's secondary systems. A piercing alarm cut through the command center as Rodriguez's sensors detected new energy signatures emanating from Vax's support vessels. Thousands of small objects emerged from launch bays, their crystalline surfaces glinting in the sunlight. "Multiple drone deployment detected," Rodriguez announced, his display filling with tracking data. Each unit equipped with miniaturized counter-frequency systems. Tommy watched the swarm spread across his tactical screen, their movement patterns triggering a flash of recognition. "They're moving like locust swarms attacking our wheat fields." He pulled up the farm's pest management protocols, fingers flying across his console. "Rodriguez, integrate these tracking algorithms into our defense grid." The automated system, designed to predict and counter insect swarm behaviors, mapped the drone's trajectories with precision. Dr. Mitchell rushed to modify his electromagnetic pulse generators, converting them to emit rapid-fire bursts. "Reconfiguring pulse frequency to target smaller crystalline structures," Mitchell called out, adjusting his equipment. "Implementing automated targeting based on the crop sprayer guidance systems." The converted grain dryers hummed to life, tracking multiple drones simultaneously. Each burst of electromagnetic energy shattered the miniature crystals, sending fragments spinning through the upper atmosphere. From the medical bay, Admiral Kex's voice crackled over the comm. "Griffin Command, the drones utilize crystalline resonance for coordination. They maintain formation through synchronized frequencies." "Just like our grain moisture sensors," Tommy said, studying the data. "Rodriguez, broadcast interference patterns through the sonic network, disrupt their communication channels." Technical Sergeant Rodriguez implemented the countermeasures, using the sugar mill crystallization chambers to generate rapidly cycling electromagnetic frequencies. The industrial equipment, repurposed from precise crystal formation control, created expanding zones of instability. "Drone formations breaking down in sectors 7 through 12, Rodriguez reported. "Crystal resonance patterns showing significant degradation." Colonel Harper coordinated with global defense installations, establishing overlapping fields of interference. poultry facility ventilation systems coming online, creating atmospheric disturbance zones. The massive industrial fans, originally designed for climate control, generated powerful air currents that threw the drone swarms into disarray. Tommy watched through the command center's displays as the combined sonic and electromagnetic defenses disrupted the enemy's attack patterns. Major Foster's analysis incoming, Rodriguez announced. VAX's flagship power core showing critical fluctuations. The tactical display highlighted energy distribution across the Ferengi fleet. The main crystalline array still dominated the upper atmosphere, but its output wavered as power diverted to maintain drone control. He can't sustain both systems, Tommy observed, nodding the familiar power management curves. Target the flagship's primary distribution nodes. Force him to choose between the array and the drones. Dr. Mitchell adjusted his converted grain dryer network, synchronizing their output with the sonic defense grid. Electromagnetic pulse generators charged to maximum capacity. Ready for coordinated strike. Through the command center's windows, the crystalline array's glow intensified as VAX struggled to maintain control over his drone fleet. Fractures spread across its surface, while thousands of smaller crystals darted through the atmospheric interference zones, their formations increasingly erratic. Tommy implemented his new attack protocol, coordinating Earth's agricultural defense network for simultaneous strikes against both threats. The modified grain silos powered up their electromagnetic generators, while the sonic grid adjusted to optimal interference frequencies. All defense sectors reporting ready, Rodriguez transmitted, awaiting strike authorization. Above them, VAX's crystalline weapons painted the sky with increasingly unstable energy patterns as Earth's converted farming equipment prepared to exploit his power management crisis. Enemy power core reaching critical threshold, Rodriguez reported. Crystal resonance patterns destabilizing across all frequencies. Execute synchronized strike, Tommy commanded. All sectors, initiate full-spectrum assault. The workshop vibrated as thousands of converted agricultural facilities across the globe activated simultaneously. Tommy's modified farm automation software coordinated the precise timing between each installation, transforming Earth's scattered defenses into a single, cohesive weapon. Dr. Mitchell's electromagnetic pulse generators hummed to life, their energy building in a familiar pattern that reminded Tommy of harvest season. The converted grain dryers, spread across 6 continents, channeled massive power surges toward VAX's flagship. Power distribution protocols engaged, Rodriguez announced, his fingers dancing across multiple control interfaces. Targeting solutions locked on both array and drone formations. A new voice cut through the tactical chatter. Dr. Sarah Zhang, Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, quantum interference generators ready for integration. Tommy glanced up to see a woman in a lab coat rushing toward his station, carrying specialized equipment. She quickly connected her prototype devices to the defense grid's main control system. The quantum generators will create overlapping resonance fields, she explained, adjusting calibration settings. They'll match the natural frequencies of their crystalline technology. Rodriguez implemented the new targeting protocols, merging Zhang's quantum interference pattern with the existing agricultural defense network. The sugar mill crystallization chambers alternated their output between electromagnetic and sonic attacks, creating unpredictable combinations that prevented VAX's forces from establishing effective countermeasures. Energy readings from enemy flagship reaching critical levels, Major Foster reported. His modified crop temperature sensors displayed alarming data curves. Their power core shows increasing instability. Through the command center's windows, they watched streams of excess energy venting from VAX's vessels into the upper atmosphere, creating shimmering distortions against the evening sky. Chief Watson reports Lake Fort Peck defenses fully operational, Rodriguez said. Underwater sonic grid generating global interference patterns. The repurposed irrigation pumps sent powerful low-frequency vibrations through Earth's oceans, disrupting the drone swarm's crystalline communication networks. On the tactical display, thousands of hostile units lost formation coherence, their coordinated attack patterns dissolving into chaos. Colonel Harper's mobile units moving into position, Rodriguez updated, converting firing solutions to match new deployment zones. Tommy tracked the converted grain carriers as they transported electromagnetic pulse generators to strategic defensive points. The agricultural vehicles, designed for heavy loads and rough terrain, provided crucial mobility to Earth's defensive grid. Dr. Zhang, Tommy called out, noting unusual readings on his display, can your quantum generators adapt to frequency shifts? Affirmative. The prototypes automatically track and match crystalline resonance patterns. Tommy integrated her quantum interference network with his farm's environmental monitoring systems. Rodriguez synchronized the quantum generators with our sonic grid, match pulse timing to the grain sorter protocols. The combined attack created cascading waves of destruction through the drone swarm. Crystalline structures shattered as overlapping fields of destructive resonance found their precise breaking points. Enemy flagship power core approaching critical threshold, Major Foster announced. Internal temperature exceeding sustainable levels. Tommy studied the energy distribution curves, recognizing the telltale signs of imminent system failure. But new signatures caught his attention: unusual power fluctuations building within VAX's secondary systems. Rodriguez, recalibrate the crop monitoring array. Focus on those anomalous energy patterns. The modified environmental sensors swept across VAX's fleet, collecting data on the strange power signatures. Tommy began adapting his agricultural monitoring protocols to analyze these new readings, preparing Earth's defenses for whatever contingency plan the Ferengi commander had prepared. Dr. Mitchell rushed to Tommy's station with updated calculations. The quantum interference is amplifying our electromagnetic effects. Their crystalline infrastructure is beginning to break down at the molecular level. Above them, VAX's fleet struggled to maintain cohesion as their power management systems approached total collapse. The massive crystalline array flickered erratically, its surface now a web of spreading fractures. But Tommy kept his focus on the building energy signatures in the flagship's secondary systems, knowing that VAX hadn't exhausted all his tactical options. Energy conversion detected in enemy support vessels, Rodriguez reported. New signatures don't match any known crystalline configurations. Tommy's modified environmental sensors tracked the unusual power readings as they intensified across VAX's fleet. Whatever the Ferengi commander planned next, Earth's agricultural defense network stood ready to adapt and respond. New power signature detected in VAX's flagship, Rodriguez announced, his eyes widening at the sensor readings. Energy patterns unlike anything we've seen before. The tactical display shifted, highlighting an expanding quantum matrix within the Ferengi vessel's secondary hull. Tommy watched as nearby support ships began losing power, their systems going dark as the matrix absorbed their energy reserves. Dr. Zhang, Tommy called out, studying his grain moisture sensor readings. Are you seeing this energy absorption pattern? She rushed to his console, analyzing the data streams. It's a quantum crystalline matrix. The energy signatures match theoretical models we developed while studying the Lake Fort Peck wreckage. The command center's screens filled with alarming data as power levels within VAX's flagship climbed exponentially. Tommy's environmental monitoring system detected massive atmospheric ionization forming around the vessel, creating patterns similar to those his moisture meters tracked during grain storage operations. Rodriguez, deploy the mobile sensor array. Track those ionization patterns. Dr. Victor Hansen burst through the command center doors, carrying specialized equipment. I received your emergency broadcast. My electromagnetic shielding protocols might help. Dr. Hansen. Tommy nodded, recognizing the developer of his farm's grain storage protection systems. We need your expertise. Vax's weapon is targeting our defensive grid. Hansen connected his equipment to the nearest console. These readings. The quantum matrix is generating harmonic frequencies that match your grain silos. The resonance could tear the installations apart. Tommy's display lit up with warning indicators as the first defensive installations began experiencing power fluctuations. The converted agricultural equipment vibrated at increasing amplitudes, straining against their structural limits. Implementing emergency power distribution protocols, Tommy announced, fingers flying across his console. Cycling power between defensive sectors based on the farm's load management system. The strategy worked. As power shifted between installations, Vax's weapon failed to establish a consistent lock on any single target. The quantum matrix's energy beam swept across Earth's surface, unable to focus its destructive resonance. Major Foster reports crystalline formations developing in the disabled Ferengi vessels, Rodriguez said. They're converting their remaining power cores. Through the command center's windows, Tommy watched the derelict ships transform. Secondary quantum matrices emerged from their hulls, creating an expanding network of energy collectors that amplified the flagship's weapon capability. Chief Watson transmitting data from Lake Fort Peck, Dr. Zhang reported. The submerged command ship is reacting to the quantum weapon. Its crystalline components are generating interference patterns through the ocean. Tommy studied the underwater sensor readings. The interference reveals the weapon's operational frequencies. Rodriguez, recalibrate our defense grid to match these patterns. Colonel Harper's voice crackled over the comm. Mobile units in position around major installations. EMPs charged and ready. The converted grain transporters, now overflowing with Dr. Mitchell's electromagnetic pulse generators, created protective barriers around crucial defensive positions. Each pulse deflected the quantum weapon's attempts to establish resonance with the agricultural equipment. Dr. Hansen worked rapidly, implementing new shielding protocols across the global network, converting additional farming facilities into hardened positions. The electromagnetic barriers should hold against the quantum matrix's current power levels. Enemy power core approaching critical threshold, Rodriguez warned. Quantum weapon charging for massive discharge. Tommy integrated the Lake Fort Peck interference data with his power management systems, preparing Earth's agricultural defense network for Vax's impending strike. Above them, the growing constellation of secondary crystalline formations amplified the flagship's energy readings beyond all previous measurements. Dr. Zhang's quantum interference generators hummed at maximum output, creating overlapping fields of protective resonance around key installations. The battle now centered on maintaining these defenses while finding a way to neutralize Vax's daring plan. All sectors report shield modifications complete, Rodriguez announced. Awaiting quantum weapon discharge. Tommy monitored his environmental sensors as atmospheric ionization reached unprecedented levels around Vax's flagship. The quantum crystalline matrix pulsed with accumulated energy, preparing to unleash its full power against Earth's converted agricultural defenses. Through the command center's display, a new figure burst into the room, carrying specialized power management equipment. Dr. James Anderson, Midwest Agricultural Power Consortium, he announced, moving quickly to an open console. I received the emergency broadcast about power surge patterns. Tommy nodded, recognizing the engineer's expertise in protecting farming communities from severe weather events. We need your input on handling these energy discharges. The quantum weapon's power levels are climbing beyond our shielding capacity. Anderson studied the readings from Vax's weapon. These energy signatures match extreme lightning strike patterns. We can adapt our surge protection protocols. His fingers flew across the interface, implementing new power distribution algorithms. Rodriguez, help me designate grain elevators as emergency absorption points. Uploading new coordinates, Rodriguez confirmed, then paused as his monitoring systems highlighted unusual data. Sir, these electromagnetic patterns, they're nearly identical to our lightning detection grid's press strike readings. Tommy leaned forward, analyzing the correlation. The weapon makes itself vulnerable during energy absorption phases. Dr. Hansen, can we exploit that weakness? Affirmative. My shielding systems are already synchronized with the farm's lightning protection equipment. We'll need a network of properly grounded facilities. Chief Watson, Tommy called over the comm, expand your underwater sonic grid. Convert all available irrigation pumps for low-frequency transmission. Already on it, Watson responded, adding 23 new transmission points across the Pacific Basin. The tactical display showed waves of sonic interference spreading through Earth's oceans, disrupting the crystalline formations attempting to manifest around disabled Ferengi vessels. Each pulse from the converted irrigation equipment sent visible ripples through the enemy's energy collection network. Major Foster's voice cut through the command chatter. Temperature monitoring systems detecting significant atmospheric changes. Pattern matches silo heat buildup scenarios. Send that data to my station, Tommy instructed, recognizing the familiar thermal signatures from his grain storage operations. The correlation revealed clear targeting patterns in the weapon's energy flow. Anderson connected additional power management systems. Converting grain elevator network into distributed grounding stations. Each facility can channel approximately 12% of the weapon's output. Colonel Harper's units moved into defensive positions, their converted grain haulers now dripping with electromagnetic pulse generators. Mobile units in place around primary installations, ready to disrupt energy collection on your mark. The air crackled with building power as Vax's weapon reached full charge. Streams of quantum energy connected the disabled Ferengi vessels, creating a vast collection grid that gleamed against the darkening sky. First energy discharge incoming, Rodriguez announced, tracking the weapon's power spike. Impact in 15 seconds. Tommy activated the distributed absorption network. Across 6 continents, modified grain elevators hummed to life, their massive metal structures ready to channel the quantum weapon's energy safely into the ground. The initial blast struck Earth's defenses with tremendous force. Agricultural installations groaned under the strain, but Anderson's power management systems held firm. Excess energy flowed through the converted storage facilities, dispersing harmlessly into the soil. Secondary crystalline formations developing between disabled vessels, Zhang reported, monitoring the atmospheric readings. The patterns suggest a new stage in the weapon's evolution. Tommy watched the crystalline structures taking shape, creating a complex network of energy collectors that threatened to amplify Vax's next attack. Above them, the quantum weapon continued its relentless assault on Earth's agricultural defense grid, searching for weaknesses in the improvised protection systems. Power absorption rates holding steady, Anderson confirmed, adjusting distribution protocols across the global network. But these new crystalline formations could overwhelm our grounding capacity if they achieve full integration. Chief Watson's underwater sonic grid pulsed with increased intensity, sending precisely calibrated vibrations through the ocean to disrupt the enemy's expanding collection network. Each transmission created visible distortions in the crystalline structures, preventing them from establishing stable energy pathways. Colonel Harper, Tommy called out, noting a vulnerability in the enemy's formation. Position your mobile units to target those connecting points between the crystalline arrays. The converted grain haulers moved into attack position, their electromagnetic pulse generators charging for a coordinated strike against Vax's evolving weapon system. Through the command center's windows, the night sky filled with an otherworldly glow as the battle for Earth's survival entered its next critical phase. Tommy watched the initial energy discharge cascade across Earth's defensive grid, its quantum resonance meeting the converted agricultural infrastructure head-on. The grain storage facilities thrummed with absorbed power, their grounding systems channeling the surge deep into the Earth's crust. Primary absorption network holding at 78% capacity, Anderson reported, his fingers dancing across the power management interface, redistributing load through secondary grain elevator circuits. Through the command center's windows, new crystalline formations blossomed between the disabled Ferengi vessels, their structure refracting the quantum weapon's energy into concentrated beams. These enhanced attacks struck with precision, threatening to overwhelm the defense grid's absorption capacity. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, detecting power spikes in sectors 7 through 12. "The weapon's output exceeds our initial calculations." Tommy studied his environmental monitoring display, noting familiar patterns in the crystalline structures. Those formations, they're growing just like the mineral deposits we clear from the grain silos. He activated the emergency communications channel. "Chief Watson, can you modify the ultrasonic cleaning array for orbital targeting?" "Affirmative, reconfiguring frequency modulators now, but we'll need more power to reach orbit." Dr. Hansen connected additional power cells to his console, rerouting excess energy from the absorption network. This should provide enough amplitude for orbital penetration. The ultrasonic array activated, sending powerful waves skyward. The crystalline formations vibrated, their precise geometric patterns beginning to fragment under the agricultural maintenance equipment's assault. Professor Thompson burst into the command center, clutching a data tablet. The university's agricultural labs found something crucial. The weapon's energy signature matches our experimental crop acceleration frequencies. "Rodriguez," Tommy called out, "access the crop acceleration database. Configure our defense grid to generate inverse wavelengths." The tactical display showed the effects immediately. Modified grain processing equipment across 6 continents generated precisely opposing frequencies, neutralizing significant portions of the quantum weapon's output. The crystalline collectors struggled to maintain their energy absorption rates. "New targeting solution implemented," Rodriguez announced, activating the converted cotton gin systems. "Electromagnetic pulse generators online. Powerful air circulation units, repurposed from cotton processing facilities, created zones of electromagnetic turbulence around key defensive positions." The quantum weapon's energy beams scattered, unable to maintain coherent patterns through the disrupted space. Anderson's voice cut through the command chatter. "Sugar crystallization systems coming online, implementing pressure control protocols." The industrial sugar production equipment, now integrated into the defense network, generated precise thermal and pressure gradients in the upper atmosphere. New crystalline formations attempting to grow between Ferengi vessels destabilized, their molecular structures unable to achieve proper alignment. "Major Foster reporting critical data," Rodriguez announced. "The flagship's internal structure is shifting. They're attempting to compensate for the disrupted collector network." Tommy's moisture sensors detected familiar recalibration patterns within Vax's vessel, the ship's restructuring its crystalline matrix, just like our grain moisture meters during extreme conditions. He studied the readings intently. "Their defensive capabilities are temporarily compromised." Through the command center's windows, the night sky flickered with competing energies. Earth's agricultural technology, repurposed into a planetary defense system, stood firm against Vax's quantum assault. The disabled Ferengi vessels continued their attempts to generate new crystalline collectors, but each formation faced immediate disruption from the adapted farming equipment. "Dr. Anderson," Tommy said, reviewing the power distribution data, "prepare for full capacity energy absorption. We need to maintain pressure on their collector network while I calculate targeting solutions for the flagship's vulnerable points." The quantum weapon pulsed overhead, its energy seeking ways through Earth's improvised defenses. But humanity's agricultural technology, built to nurture and sustain life, now served as an unexpected shield against alien aggression. The battle for Earth's survival continued in this strange convergence of farming equipment and advanced quantum weapons. "Energy absorption rates peaking at critical levels," Anderson announced, his fingers adjusting power distribution controls. "We need to redirect the surge before," a new alert flashed across Tommy's environmental monitoring display. The flagship structure exhibited familiar distortion patterns, identical to metal fatigue and overloaded grain storage systems. "Dr. Anderson, look at these stress indicators. The ship's reconstruction phase matches our silo failure scenarios." Dr. Marcus Reed rushed through the command center doors, his tablet displaying complex crystalline analysis data. "Idaho National Laboratory findings," he said, connecting to the main system. "Their collector network uses crystallization patterns similar to our industrial sugar processing." Tommy integrated Reed's data into the defense grid. "Rodriguez, reconfigure the sugar mill crystallization chambers. Target their secondary collection points with opposing frequency patterns." Massive industrial equipment across 3 continents hummed to life, their crystallization chambers now emitting precise interference waves. The orbital collectors flickered, their energy absorption rates dropping sharply. "Converting cotton gin systems to electromagnetic pulse mode," Rodriguez reported. His modified control algorithms transformed agricultural processing equipment into weaponry. Powerful air circulation units generated concentrated energy bursts, striking the weakened collector grid. Through the command center's windows, waves of electromagnetic interference disrupted the crystalline formations connecting disabled Ferengi vessels. Each pulse from the converted farming equipment created visible fractures in the enemy's energy network. Chief Watson reporting subsurface anomalies. The underwater monitoring system crackled, detecting harmonic frequencies from the submerged command section, matches weapon core resonance. Tommy accessed the irrigation pump controls, synchronize pump frequencies with those harmonics, create destructive interference patterns using grain handling vibration protocols. The global network of modified irrigation equipment pulsed in perfect rhythm, sending precisely calibrated sonic waves through Earth's oceans. The flagship's crystalline structure shuddered under the assault, its reformation process disrupted by agricultural technology repurposed into sonic weapons. "Major Foster here," new data streamed across tactical displays. The weapon's power core exhibits instability patterns matching overloaded grain dryers. "Implementing automated load management sequences," Tommy responded, adapting farm power distribution algorithms. The coordinated electromagnetic attack forced Vax's flagship to divert essential energy from its reconstruction efforts. Colonel Harper's voice cut through the communications channel. "Mobile units in position. Dr. Mitchell's pulse generators are online and synchronized." Converted grain haulers established defensive positions around population centers, their electromagnetic systems creating overlapping fields of protection. The quantum weapon's attempts to redirect energy towards civilian targets met waves of agricultural interference. "Flagship structural integrity declining," Rodriguez announced, monitoring the vessel's deterioration. "But sir, the power core readings, they're showing unusual signatures." Tommy studied the energy patterns. They pulsed with increasing intensity, threatening to overwhelm standard containment protocols. Dr. Reed analyzed these new power fluctuations. I'm activating emergency containment systems from sectors 3 through 7. Reed's crystalline monitoring equipment detected new formations developing among the disabled Ferengi ships. These structures exhibit properties we haven't seen before. The molecular alignment suggests a massive energy surge from the flagship's power core interrupted his analysis. The quantum weapon's signature shifted, its frequency patterns evolving beyond their initial parameters. Through the command center's viewports, new crystalline structures began taking shape in the orbital network, their properties defying conventional analysis. Tommy initiated emergency power redistribution sequences as Earth's agricultural defense grid adjusted to counter this latest development. The battle for humanity's survival entered a new phase, with farm technology adapted into weapons standing as the planet's primary defense against advancing alien technology. A piercing alarm cut through the command center as new data flooded Tommy's monitoring systems. The flagship's power core signature matched the telltale patterns he'd seen countless times during grain silo system failures. Core destabilization accelerating, Rodriguez reported, his hands moving across multiple control interfaces. Energy output matches Class 5 silo breach scenarios. Through the reinforced windows, the crystalline formations between disabled Ferengi vessels pulsed with increasing intensity. Dr. Reed's analysis confirmed Tommy's worst fears. These new structures, Reed said, pointing to his crystallography readings, they're self-replicating. The molecular patterns indicate they're designed to capture and redirect energy. The command center doors slid open as Dr. Alina Petrova strode in, her tablet displaying prototype containment schematics. The ESA's containment protocols can be adapted to your grain storage network, she said, connecting her device to the main system. The principles match our experimental plasma containment methods. Tommy studied the schematics. Anderson, start converting the primary storage facilities. Use the same power distribution protocols we developed for the summer heat waves. Maintenance crews across 6 continents activated modified grain elevators, their massive structures humming as electromagnetic shielding came online. The agricultural buildings, originally designed for bulk grain storage, transformed into a network of energy absorption points. Chief Watson reporting critical harmonic readings, the underwater monitoring system announced. The submerged command section is amplifying the flagship's core frequencies. Tommy accessed the irrigation control systems, engaging counter-frequency protocols. Match the wavelength patterns from last year's reservoir stabilization project. Modified irrigation pumps throughout Lake Fort Peck generated precise sonic interference patterns. The water rippled with competing energies as Earth's agricultural technology worked to neutralize the alien threat. Colonel Harper, status report on mobile containment, Tommy called out. Modified grain haulers in position around primary agricultural installations, Harper responded. Dr. Mitchell's pulse generators are maintaining stable electromagnetic barriers. Dr. Reed's monitoring equipment detected new crystalline growth patterns. The orbital formations are attempting to synchronize. Energy collection efficiency increasing by 12% per minute. Tommy activated the ultrasonic cleaning array, adjusting the frequency to match the patterns they used for clearing mineral deposits from storage silos. The hyperd sonic waves disrupted the crystalline structure's molecular alignment, preventing them from achieving stable configurations. Power core approaching critical threshold, Rodriguez announced. Detecting energy signatures consistent with imminent structural failure. Dr. Petrova integrated her containment protocols into the defense grid, initiating plasma containment sequences. The grain storage network should handle the initial energy surge, but we need additional absorption capacity. Converting secondary storage facilities in sectors 4 through 9, Anderson reported. Implementing distributed load management across all available structures. The night sky blazed with increasing intensity as the flagship's power core continued its descent into catastrophic failure. New crystalline collectors formed and reformed between the disabled vessels, adapting to each countermeasure Earth's forces deployed. "Sir," Rodriguez called out, "the converted cotton gin network is ready. Electromagnetic field generators at maximum output." Tommy studied the power distribution grid. Activate the synchronized defense protocol. Channel all excess energy through the agricultural infrastructure. The modified farming equipment generated overlapping fields of electromagnetic energy, creating corridors to direct the quantum weapon's power into Earth's containment system. The massive grain elevators absorbed and dispersed the incoming energy, their advanced cooling systems preventing structural damage. "Doctor." "Read," Tommy said, noting unusual patterns in the crystalline formations. "Those self-replicating collectors are showing signs of independent behavior." Reed's analysis confirmed the observation. "They're developing adaptive properties beyond their original parameters. Each new formation demonstrates improved resistance to our countermeasures." Through the command center's windows, the quantum weapon's unstable core created visible distortions in the surrounding space. The agricultural defense network strained to contain the escalating energy levels while preventing the crystalline collectors from establishing a synchronized orbital grid. Dr. Petrova's monitoring equipment registered new power fluctuations. "The containment system needs immediate recalibration. These energy patterns don't match our initial models." Tommy accessed the emergency protocols developed during last season's record harvest. Implementing adaptive load distribution. "Anderson, prepare all available storage facilities for maximum capacity absorption." The battle for Earth's survival centered on this crucial moment, preventing both a catastrophic core breach and the emergence of an autonomous crystalline network. The converted farming equipment, humanity's unexpected shield against alien technology, faced its greatest test as the flagship's power core approached its final moments of stability. The agricultural monitoring systems flashed urgent warnings as unprecedented energy readings poured in from the orbital sensors. Tommy directed his attention to a new alert on his primary display. The quantum weapon's power signature had exceeded the capacity of Dr. Petrova's standard measurement equipment. "The containment sensors can't track these levels," Petrova announced, her fingers flying across her control panel. "We need alternative detection methods." Tommy accessed the facility's grain moisture monitoring network. "Rodriguez, reconfigure the moisture sensors in sectors 5 through 12. Their sensitivity range should handle these energy patterns." The modified agricultural sensors came online, translating the weapon's massive power fluctuations into readable data. Numbers scrolled across the screens as the repurposed equipment tracked the building energy surge. "Dr. Hansen's reinforcement protocols are ready," Anderson reported, "implementing electromagnetic shielding across all storage facilities." Metal frameworks throughout the global defense network hummed with protective energy. The massive grain silos, their structures enhanced with Hansen's shielding technology, prepared to channel the quantum weapon's discharge. Dr. Reed's crystalline monitoring equipment registered a sudden shift in the orbital formations. "These patterns," he said, studying the readouts, "they match our data on mineral crystallization under extreme pressure. The structures are attempting to stabilize." Through the command center's windows, the crystalline network pulsed with increasing intensity. The formations between disabled Ferengi vessels reorganized themselves, their molecular structures seeking a new equilibrium. The doors slid open as Technical Sergeant Rodriguez rushed in. "Sir, the hemp processing facilities are operational. Electromagnetic pulse generators show green across all stations." "Activate the processing equipment," Tommy ordered. "Match the pulse frequency to the crystalline reformation rate." Industrial hemp separators powered up across 3 continents, their massive mechanisms generating precisely calibrated electromagnetic fields. The orbital formations responded immediately, their growth patterns shifting to match the agricultural equipment's output. Dr. William Nash arrived from Argonne National Laboratory, his tablet displaying complex plasma containment simulations. "The conveyor systems in sectors 2 and 7 can handle these energy levels," he said, connecting to the main network. "We need to establish redundant distribution channels." Tommy integrated Nash's containment protocols with the agricultural control system. Grain conveyors throughout the facility activated, their structures converting into emergency power distribution networks. Chief Watson's underwater monitoring system registered new disturbances. The submerged command section is generating increasing power signatures, attempting to synchronize with orbital formations. "Adjust irrigation pump frequencies," Tommy commanded. "Maintain interference patterns between surface and orbital structures." Modified irrigation equipment generated defensive sonic waves through Earth's oceans, disrupting the underwater vessel's attempts to connect with the crystalline network. The command ship's energy signature fluctuated as it encountered the agricultural countermeasures. Major Foster's analysis appeared on the main tactical display. "Sir, the cotton gin electromagnetic output matches key harmonic frequencies in the crystalline structure. We might be able to guide their formation." Tommy studied the resonance patterns. The cotton processing equipment's energy signature aligned perfectly with stable configurations in the orbital network. He adjusted the automated control systems, coordinating the agricultural machinery to influence the crystalline growth. "Dr. Reed," Tommy called out, noting changes in the formation patterns, "confirm these structural modifications." Reed's monitoring equipment tracked the shifting molecular alignments. "The crystals are responding to our frequency inputs, stability increasing by 8%. The massive agricultural defense network operated at maximum capacity, its converted farming equipment working to contain the imminent core breach. Through the reinforced windows, the crystalline formations continued their complex dance of reorganization, guided by the precise electromagnetic pulses from Earth's repurposed agricultural technology. A new alert flashed across Tommy's display as energy readings from the submerged Ferengi vessel spiked dramatically. The underwater command ship's power signature exhibited unusual patterns that suggested it might play an essential role in the developing containment strategy. "Dr. Nash," Tommy said, accessing the facility's primary control systems, "we need to recalibrate the conveyor network. These new energy patterns require additional distribution pathways. The underwater command ship's signature matches our agricultural resonance patterns," Tommy said, integrating the new data streams. "Route emergency power through the Fort Peck distribution grid." Indicator lights across the command center blazed red as Fleet Commander Vax's flagship surged with unstable energy. The modified grain elevators activated their absorption protocols, their metal frameworks illuminating the night sky with electromagnetic activity. "Power distribution network online," Dr. Nash reported, his fingers dancing across the control interface. "Conveyor systems engaging at maximum capacity." The massive grain storage facilities hummed with contained energy, their reinforced structures channeling power surges across continents. Warning klaxons sounded as individual nodes approached capacity limits. "Detecting coherent patterns in the orbital formations," Dr. Reed announced, studying the crystallization data. "The cotton gin frequencies are creating stable growth matrices." Through the command center's windows, the crystalline collectors responded to Earth's agricultural equipment. Their structures shifted and realigned, forming an intricate lattice sphere around the failing flagship. The pattern matched Dr. Reed's archived data on mineral formations within the grain storage systems. Dr. Petrova monitored the emerging containment field. Sugar mill crystallization chambers ready, implementing growth stabilization protocols. The modified sugar processing equipment generated precise electromagnetic fields, guiding the orbital formations into optimal configurations. Energy readings from the flagship's core continued to spike dangerously. Chief Watson reporting synchronized activity, the underwater monitoring system announced. The command ship's crystalline systems are activating. Tommy accessed the Lake Fort Peck sensor array. The submerged Ferengi vessel pulsed with energy, establishing resonance with both the orbital formations and the destabilizing flagship. The irrigation pump network transmitted real-time data as a coherent pattern emerged between the three crystalline sources. Hansen's shielding technology is responding, Anderson called out. Energy transfer channels forming between orbital and underwater positions. The grain storage network channeled power between the crystalline structures, creating a stabilizing effect on the quantum weapon's core. Cooling systems throughout the agricultural infrastructure operated at maximum capacity, preventing structural damage from the massive energy flow. Implementing emergency pulse protocols, Rodriguez announced, activating the hemp processing stations. Electromagnetic generators at full output. Precisely timed pulses from the agricultural equipment guided the crystalline formations, preventing dangerous resonance patterns from developing. The combined alien technologies responded to Earth's improvised containment measures. Major Foster's tactical display showed the flagship's core stability dropping to critical levels. Core reaching 98% instability. Agricultural Defense Network operating at maximum sustainable output. Mobile units in position, Colonel Harper reported. Grain transporters ready to redirect power surges on your command. The crystalline network stabilized into visible energy channels, connecting the three alien power sources in a complex geometric pattern. Tommy studied the power readings, noting concerning fluctuations in the containment field's integrity. Dr. Nash, he called out, these energy signatures suggest technological convergence between the crystalline sources. Nash analyzed the incoming data. Confirmed. The three structures are synchronizing into a unified system. Unknown if our agricultural containment protocols can handle the merged configuration. The command center's monitoring equipment tracked the delicate balance between power absorption and distribution as Earth's farming infrastructure worked to prevent catastrophic failure. Through the reinforced windows, the night sky blazed with electromagnetic activity as humanity's agricultural technology fought to contain the merging alien power sources. Dr. Petrova's adapted grain moisture sensors registered new energy patterns emerging from the unified crystalline structure. The containment field is holding, but these readings exceed our projected models. Tommy accessed the emergency distribution controls, preparing additional power management protocols as the alien technologies continued their unprecedented convergence. The Agricultural Defense Network adjusted its output, adapting to each phase of the crystalline merger while maintaining critical containment parameters. Energy patterns shifting, Dr. Reed announced, his eyes fixed on the crystallization data. The orbital formations are incorporating elements from the submerged command ship structure. Through the reinforced windows, the crystalline lattice surrounding Vax's flagship transformed, its molecular structure realigned, adopting characteristics of the more stable Ferengi technology beneath the waters of Fort Peck. The hybrid pattern spread across the containment field, creating an intricate geometric mesh that pulsed with controlled energy. Dr. Nash studied the grain moisture readings. These formations match mineral deposit patterns we've documented in specialized storage conditions. The merged structure is achieving a new state of matter. The command center doors opened as Dr. Sarah Howard strode in, her tablet displaying complex containment simulations. The Pacific Rim Institute's data confirms it. This hybrid formation exhibits properties we can manage with modified agricultural systems. Tommy integrated her containment protocols into the defense grid. Rodriguez, route power through the additional silo nodes, matched Dr. Howard's specifications. Converting hemp processing stations now, Rodriguez responded. The facility's electromagnetic generators hummed at precise frequencies, guiding the crystalline merger. Energy readings stabilized as the agricultural equipment maintained careful control over the resonance patterns. Dr. Howard connected her equipment to the main systems. The quantum signature matches our experimental results. These grain silos can handle the hybrid power output. Underwater monitoring stations transmitted new data as Chief Watson tracked energy transfers between the submerged vessel and orbital formations. The command ship is uploading containment protocols through the crystalline network, adjusting irrigation frequencies to maintain stable data flow. Modified pump systems generated carefully calibrated sonic waves, preventing power surges while facilitating the technological exchange. The merged crystalline structure responded to the agricultural equipment's guidance, its energy channels self-regulating like automated grain storage systems. Interface points stabilizing, Major Foster reported, highlighting key nodes on the tactical display. The cotton gin frequencies are maintaining structural integrity during data transfer. Tommy accessed the industrial freeze-drying controls. Nash, implement cooling protocols at the merger points. Use the food processing equipment to prevent structural weakening. Converted freeze-drying units activated across the facility, generating focused electromagnetic fields. The powerful cooling systems kept the hybrid technology stable as it continued evolving into more complex configurations. New energy signatures detected, Dr. Reed announced. The crystalline merger is entering another transformation phase. Dr. Howard analyzed the incoming data. These patterns suggest increased integration between the three power sources. We need to expand the containment grid. Tommy directed his attention to the agricultural control systems. The automated management software adapted to each change in the crystalline network, maintaining precise control over the massive energy flows while preventing dangerous resonance patterns from developing. The submerged Ferengi vessel transmitted another burst of technical data through the merged network. Dr. Petrova's modified sensors tracked the information exchange as it rippled through the hybrid containment field. Unknown technology signatures emerging, she reported. The merged system is acquiring capabilities beyond our original projections. Tommy accessed additional agricultural systems, preparing them for conversion as the crystalline network continued its unprecedented transformation. Through the command center windows, the night sky shimmered with controlled energy as humanity's farming equipment worked to contain and direct the evolving alien technology. Dr. Howard studied the latest sensor readings. The hybrid structure is achieving quantum coherence. We need to adjust our containment protocols accordingly. A sharp beeping from the medical bay's communication system cut through the tension. Tommy, Stella's voice crackled over the intercom. Admiral Kex is conscious. Through the command center screens, Tommy watched the Admiral bolt upright on the medical bay bed, his eyes fixed on the sensor displays showing the crystalline formations. That signature. Kex's voice trembled. The crystal nexus. Our ancestors' writings spoke of this perfection. Tommy activated the medical bay's data connection. Admiral, what do you know about these formations? They match descriptions from our oldest technical archives, a theoretical perfect fusion of Ferengi containment systems. Your agricultural technology has achieved what our scientists deemed impossible. Tommy's fingers flew across the control interface, integrating Kex's transmitted historical data into the defense network's protocols. The crystal structure's behavior patterns aligned precisely with the ancient Ferengi technical specifications. A violent surge from Vax's flagship rocked the command center. Warning indicators blazed as the quantum weapons core released its remaining energy reserves. Power spike detected, Dr. Nash called out. Routing emergency discharge through primary grain storage network. The modified silos hummed at frequencies that matched the crystal lattice's resonance. Tommy watched the energy readings stabilize as Dr. Howard's containment systems absorbed and redistributed the massive power surge. Conveyor network holding, Dr. Nash reported, his hands dancing across multiple control stations. No signs of system overload. Tommy accessed the farm's irrigation management software, an idea forming as he studied the power fluctuation patterns. The crystal sources are operating independently. We need to synchronize their energy cycles. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency, adapting the automated watering schedules into a power distribution algorithm. The agricultural timing system, designed to optimize water flow across thousands of acres, now coordinated precise energy pulses between the three crystalline nodes. Energy synchronization achieved, Dr. Reed announced. The hybrid structure is self-stabilizing. In the medical bay, Admiral Kex interfaced with the facility's systems, transmitting command ship integration codes now. The underwater vessel's advanced containment protocols merged seamlessly with the crystal network. Through the reinforced windows, Tommy watched repair patterns spread across Vax's damaged flagship. The quantum weapon's signature dimmed as the hybrid technology neutralized its remaining instabilities. Dr. Reed, Tommy called out, what's the status of the merged structure? Crystalline formation has achieved permanent stability, Reed responded, studying his sensor displays. The hybrid matrix is beginning controlled decomposition. The lattice surrounding Vax's ship pulsed with organized energy patterns. Tommy watched as the quantum weapon's components dissolved into the crystalline network, leaving the flagship transformed but intact. A new alert flashed across the command screens as Vax's command center opened. The fleet commander emerged, his posture rigid as he transmitted surrender codes through the remaining communication channels. Admiral Kex, Tommy said, accessing the planetary defense controls, I need your help modifying these systems for permanent installation. Sending Ferengi shield specifications now, Kex responded. Your agricultural technology provides the perfect framework for a hybrid defense grid. Tommy integrated the alien data into the converted farming equipment. The crystalline-enhanced machinery hummed with steady power as a protective network formed in Earth's atmosphere. Dr. Howard analyzed the emerging shield patterns. The hybrid system is fully stable. Agricultural equipment successfully interfacing with crystalline technology. Energy readings across all monitoring stations showed optimal levels as humanity's farming infrastructure merged permanently with the advanced alien systems, creating an impenetrable defense shield around their world. Through the command center's windows, Tommy watched the hybrid technology pulse with controlled power. The grain storage network channeled steady energy flows, while modified sensor arrays monitored the shield grid's integrity. Earth's agricultural innovation had transformed alien invasion into technological evolution, the systems working in harmony as day faded into dusk. Dr. Nash, Tommy said, studying the latest sensor data, let's analyze these stability readings. We need to understand exactly how this hybrid technology functions.